Okay, good morning.
Excuse. No, we're not. The court report is not there yet, so we're not.
We're not on the record for court. We're only just opening our meeting and closing
The
it.
general board meeting.
Okay.
Good morning. We'll go ahead and open our meeting this morning of the Veterinary Medical Board. I'd like to call the roll. Dr. Bradbury?
Here.
Ms. Yanez?
Here.
Ms. Bowler?
Here.
Ms. Laredo?
Here.
Dr. Nunez?
Here.
Dr. Waterhouse?
Here.
Dr. Noland is here. Thank you. Now we'll go ahead and go into a closed session. Thank you very much.
Is there anything we need to take care of before we begin? Okay. On the record, this is before the Veterinary Medical Board of the Department of Consumer Affairs in the matter of the petition for reinstatement of Lisa Grosso, Grosso, registered veterinarian technician. Our location is the Mission Inn Hotel, 3649 Mission Inn Avenue in Riverside, California. My name is Valerie Johnson. I am the administrative law judge assigned by the Office of Administrative Hearings to hear the matter. I am actually sitting with the Board of Veterinary Medicine, and quorum was established prior to the time that we went on the record. Is that correct, ma'am?
That is correct.
Thank you. And you are the president of the board, is that correct?
That is correct.
And could you state your name for that purpose?
Dr. Jamie Noland.
Thank you. Opening statement.
Good morning, Tori Poland, Deputy Attorney General, appearing on behalf of the people of the state of California in accordance with Business and Professions Code Section 2760.1 and Government Code Section 11522. I would first like to mark for identification and offer into evidence the following exhibits. The board members, petitioners...
Before you do, I'd like you to make a statement.
Sure.
Make your statement.
So we are here today for a petition for a reinstatement.
Excuse me.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, but we need all of the members to state their name and take a roll call so that the transcript properly reflects the individuals who were present. I know we already took roll call for the actual board meeting, but we did not indicate who was present for terms of the record.
Thank you. And you are for the purpose of the record.
Oh, I apologize. I'm Tara Welch, and legal counsel for the board.
Thank you.
Okay, I will go ahead and take roll call for the record. Dr. Bradbury. Christina Bradbury, here. Oh, full name? Okay. Why don't we go ahead and just introduce yourself.
Alana Yanez.
Cheryl Waterhouse.
Jamie Noland.
Mark Nunez.
Kathy Bowler. Jennifer Laredo.
I would like to now offer a summary of this case. Petitioner was issued Registered Veterinary Technician Registration 9644 on June 8, 2012. On August 11, 2015, an accusation was filed against petitioner's registration.
I apologize for interrupting. Can you go back? You cited some statutes when you began.
Yes, Your Honor. What the statutes were, Business and Professions Code Section 2760.1 and Government Code Section 11522.
Thank you. Proceed.
Petitioner voluntarily surrendered her registration effective November 26, 2015. Prior to any reissuance or reinstatement of her registration, Petitioner was ordered to pay the board its costs of investigation and enforcement in the amount of $1,137.50. The original basis for discipline in this matter was petitioner's criminal convictions. On or about April 24th, 2014, petitioner was convicted of a violation of Vehicle Code Section 23152, subsection A, driving under the influence of alcohol, a misdemeanor. Petitioner drove on the wrong side of the highway and later collided with the house. On or about September 8th, 2014, petitioner was convicted of a violation of Vehicle Code Section 23153, subsection B, driving while having a blood alcohol content of 0.08% or more, and in so driving, concurrently committed an act forbidden by law, a felony. Petitioner also admitted to the allegations of having a prior DUI conviction within 10 years, pursuant to Vehicle Code Section 23560, and having a blood alcohol content of 0.15% or more, pursuant to Vehicle Code Section 23578. Respondent collided with another driver while driving on a suspended license. It is petitioner's burden to demonstrate that she is rehabilitated and safe to practice, and that her registration should be reinstated. Therefore, we have nothing further at this time, but reserve the right to cross-examine petitioner or call her if she does not choose to testify, and we request that she be sworn in prior to providing testimony.
Thank you.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Your Honor, I would like to mark for identification and offer into evidence the exhibits.
Just 1 second. Did you want to make an opening statement?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. And could I get your name for the record, ma'am?
Miranda McCroskey.
Thank you.
And Your Honor, for a housekeeping matter, the address on the petition is outdated. I've given the court reporter my current address. Would you like me to read it into the record?
No. Could you spell your last name, though?
McCroskey, McCroskey. First name Miranda.
Could you spell the last name one more time?
MC, capital C, Roskey, McCroskey.
And you're an attorney, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. And you're representing Ms. Grasso today, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to mark for identification and offer into evidence the following exhibits. The board members, petitioner, and Your Honor have been provided with a copy of the same exhibits. Exhibit 1 is a notice of hearing and proof of service.
Just 1 second, please. And when you say the notice of hearing, you're talking about the letter dated March 14, 2019, correct?
Yes,
And then there's proof of service attached to it. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Thank you.
Exhibit 2 is the certification of license history.
These documents are two-sided?
Yes, they are, Your Honor.
Okay. Proceed.
Exhibit 3 is the petition for reinstatement.
And how many pages is that?
It looks to be about 95 pages. The page numbers go from AGO-005 through AGO-100.
And that's Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Okay.
Exhibit 4 is the surrender decision and order. It's approximately 5 pages.
So that would be 101 to 105?
101 through 106.
Thank you.
So 6 pages. Exhibit 5 is the accusation. That's from AGO-107 through AGO-115.
Thank you.
Exhibit 6 is the disciplinary guidelines, which goes from AGO-116 through AGO-155.
Thank you.
And Exhibit 7 is additional documentation provided by petitioner, and that goes from pages AGO-156 through AGO-173.
And you have a set of the documents, is that correct, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is there any one of the board members who have any documents missing?
I don't have Exhibit 7.
You don't have Exhibit 7?
Oh, then I do have it. I apologize. Thank you.
Could you, I believe it's marked 156 through 173.
I do have it.
You
Thank
do
you.
have it, thank you. Anyone else have any trouble identifying the documents? For the record, there's no statement, so we all have the documents. Thank you. Proceed. And did you want to offer the documents as part of the record?
Yes, Your Honor. I'd like to offer them into evidence at this time.
Any objection?
No objections, Your Honor.
You're offering all the documents as direct evidence?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you said no objection, correct?
Correct, Your Honor.
Exhibits 1 through 7 are admitted. Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would you like to make your statement at this time, or would you simply like to call your client?
I'll just call my client and we'll begin the questioning.
Okay. Could you stand, please? Raise your right hand and face me. Could you stand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Have a seat, please, and state your full name for the record and spell your name.
My name is Lisa Marie Grosso. Last name spelled Grosso.
Thank you. You may proceed.
Lisa, let's start with when you voluntarily surrendered your license, November 26th of 15. Can you tell us about that experience?
Yes, I can tell you about that experience. My DUIs and convictions actually occurred in 2014. So when my conviction occurred in November of 2014, I was involved with 6 months of residential rehab, which I got out of January 2015. I was also going
When did you go into residential
that would
rehab?
be Stepping Stones of San Diego, 6-month residential rehab. Okay.
And when did you go in?
That was from July 23rd till 2014 to January 23rd, 2015, and there was approximately 3 months of aftercare, which I finished in March of 2015. So at that point in 2015, I was once I got out of rehabilitation, I went ahead and was heavily meeting the requirements of my DUIs, going to the 18-month DUI school, completing public works, paying off my fines, and that sort of thing. So in August of 2015, I received the accusation that I received from the board. I was going through many things, again, meeting my requirements under a lot of stress. Also, I was going through a subrogation claim as well through the victim's insurance company. So 2015 was a long year of a lot of stress, and when the accusation came about, I was deathly afraid of going through another court proceeding, mainly the administrative process, and fearful of the outcome of that. So fear led me to surrender, reluctantly, my veterinary technician license. I didn't want to do it, but I was under so much stress at the time, I didn't want to add any more to my plate. I couldn't add any more to my plate. So reluctantly, hesitantly, I surrendered my license out of fear of the administrative process.
Thank you. And in the time since you did that in November of 15 to present, you've been taking steps to rehabilitate yourself so that you can have a new license, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Let's talk about some of those steps of rehabilitation.
Please.
In the packet, which is exhibit number 3, AGO 005 through AGO 100, we discuss your continuing education. Not only do we have a list of the different courses you took, but we have a large number of printed certificates attached inside of these, inside of the petition that was filed. Can you tell us about some of the continuing education you did, maybe starting with when you began taking the courses?
Absolutely. I would take the live webinar courses from the Veterinary Specialty Hospital of San Diego. It was the only way I could get my live webinars in because I didn't have a driver's license until 2017. I learned many different things. It was 2 credit hours, so from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, learning new things like new drug updates, new spay and neuter opportunities, different medical procedures, TPLOs, for example, things that are keeping me updated in the in the process. Also, they have discussions on educational procedures, in-house veterinary procedures, updated chemistry, and throughout, I just wanted to keep up with that because I wanted to my goal was to get my license back. Although I surrendered my license, I wanted to continue to keep myself updated in the current medical field.
And a quick count of the credits that you've submitted, both in the original packet and in your supplemental packet, gives me approximately 52 credit hours earned. Would you say that's correct?
That is correct.
And that's spread out from June 17th of 15 until your recent ones, which occurred most recently April 4th of this year.
Is that
Okay.
correct?
That is correct.
Thank you. I need a verbal response for the court report.
Thank you.
Moving on to your employment occupation, you state in your petition that you've been in the veterinarian practice world for 25 years. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, in the 25-year span, I've had experience working in humane societies, veterinary hospitals, rescue facilities. A lot of that time was taken to assess animals, assess any illnesses, any injuries, anything abnormalities that they may have. In the beginning of my career, I worked at humane societies, animal control, also as an animal control officer, kennel attendants, moving up to veterinary assistant, assistant to the veterinarian, and also volunteering a lot. I volunteer for the Feral Cat Coalition, for example, and Rescue House. Both are cat organizations in San Diego. I started with both of them in 2002. With the Feral Cat Coalition, I attend monthly clinics to help spay and neuter anywhere from 60 to 125 cats a month to help lower the cat overpopulation. And I would assist in everything from assisting with...
Excuse me just a minute.
Yes,
The court reporter wants you to slow down.
thank you.
You're talking very fast.
Sorry about that.
I couldn't tell if you were reading something or not, but
No.
she has a legal obligation to take down every word you say.
Understood, thank you.
So I know she absolutely wants you to slow down.
I will.
If you're talking so fast that I can't hear you, then I know she's having trouble getting you.
Thank you.
So you volunteered for the Feral Cat Organization?
Feral Cats Coalition,
Feral Cats Coalition.
yes. And also the Rescue House, which is a cat foster, rescue, and adoption service. And both of those has been since 2002.
I see you also have had experience at ZenCat for the last year. Tell us about that.
Okay, I started with ZenCat.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Before you go there, if you could go back, you were telling us what you did with them and you were talking about the spay and neutering, and I interrupted you. So if you could tell us just a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. With the Feral Cat Coalition, I would assist with everything from helping to induce anesthesia, to preparing the animals for the surgeries, the cats for the surgeries, recovery process, and many times doing triage, because many times, well, not many times, but sometimes a cat with no background, no health history can crash. So I will work closely with the veterinarians to save that cat's life. Now in the Rescue House, that is a foster and adoption service, we will take homeless cats and take them into our residence. It's an all-volunteer organization. Take them into our residence to either raise kittens or get them ready for the adoption process. Also, we work closely with veterinarians if they happen to have any problems medically, which they can, upper respiratory infection, injuries from where they came from, etc. So we would work closely with veterinarians and the local hospitals to rehabilitate them as well.
Now ZenCat.
Now ZenCat I am working with Dr. Phoenix Watt as an independent contractor. She is an on-call, house call veterinary service specifically for cats. And she will call me whenever she might need assistance with cats that might be a little bit more difficult to handle. Using the fear-free techniques and other techniques that I have learned, I'm able to help calm the cat down so we don't have to use sedative to try to draw blood or try to do things that otherwise might be problematic. She tends to call me the cat whisperer. So it's all of that is very, very rewarding, and it's my way of giving back to the community as well, and to give back to the cats for what they've given to me, which is a lot of help in my life.
And before you move away from Dr. Phoenix Watt, I wanted
Yes.
to point out that in the packet there are 2 recommendation letters from Dr. Watt. The first one is on pages AGO 088 and 089, dated May 10th of 2018, and she states many glowing things about you. And the other one is AGO 172, dated October 11th, 2018, where she states that it's additional information in addition to her previous letter, and continues to say positive things about you.
Now, if I also may bring up myself, there are a couple of letters of recommendations from veterinarians that
Excuse me, did you have a question for her about the letters?
Is that correct? That
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, if I may bring up also the most recent letter from Dr. Elaine Jordan that should be submitted in your supplemental packet. She is a veterinarian that I currently work with in the Feral Cat Coalition.
Excuse me, page number.
That's page AGO 169, dated February 27th, 2019.
Thank you.
And also Dr. Solani Grindle, who I also work with at the Feral Cat Coalition.
Page AGO 168, no date.
Thank you.
Did you want to say anything specific about Dr. Jordan's letter?
Dr. Jordan did just specifically state my commitment to the cats. For example, noticing when a community cat may need help, I'm very able to point that out, and even taking the cat into my home to help to rehabilitate the cat, to get that cat into adoption. She and I have also worked triage together, I and Dr. Grindle, and many cats that have gone into a crash situation where it's almost died, and we've been able to save it and bring it back to life.
And isn't it true that Dr. Jordan states that she's lucky to have you on her team?
Yes.
You understand that's her feelings about you?
Yes, I do.
And also, you've explained to her about your past mistakes?
Yes, I've explained to her my past mistakes, Dr. Grindle, Dr. Watt as well. Everybody that I have been working with is very well aware of my mistakes that I've made in the past.
Thank you. Would you like to say anything about Surfside Animal Hospital?
Yes, Surfside Animal Hospital. I worked with Dr. Gary Siebert at Surfside Animal Hospital, who's also my personal veterinarian. He saw the knack that I have with working with cats specifically, and allowed me to, he's an associate at Surfside Veterinary Hospital, and I talked to him about wanting to re-enhance my hard skills as a veterinary technician because I had been having difficulty finding a job. So he allowed me to come on board at Surfside Animal Hospital to volunteer there for a 6-month term, about 10 hours a week. Again, I was walking or taking a bus there, but it was 10 hours a week where I could enhance my hard skills, such as placing IV catheters, doing vaccination.
You said something about hard skills, and I missed that word.
Yes, hard skills, meaning things like my in placing intravenous catheters and working with clients, monitoring patients under anesthesia and in surgery and in recovery, for example, because I felt I was out of the field for so long in an office environment. I wanted to enhance my skills because my goal was to go ahead and get a full-time job as a veterinary technician.
And are you saying HEART skills or HARD?
HARD.
Hard skills.
I see.
That was the word I was having trouble with. Thank you.
Since you mentioned Dr. Siebert, let me just note that there is a letter of recommendation on AGO 086 from Dr. Siebert dated May of 2018. And do you happen to know if there's a more recent one as well?
That is the only one.
Okay, thank you. Was that all you wanted to say about Surfside?
Yes.
And how about College Pet Clinic?
College Pet Clinic. I was employed at College Pet Clinic for 5 years. It was there that I worked myself up from a veterinary assistant to a registered veterinary technician. I used the alternate route program where I was able to meet the requirements there and then submit my application and get my registered veterinary technician license.
Very good. So congratulations are in order. You have a new employment. Your Honor, this employment agreement is dated March 28th of 19. We've given the DAG a copy. Unfortunately, we didn't have multiple copies for the board, and I don't know how to handle that.
You said March 28th, what?
2019, just days ago.
We
I
can
don't have it.
probably
Would you
make
call-
arrangements to get a copy after the hearing.
Okay,
But the board members, I'm sure, are going to want to see that during closed session.
okay, so I'll leave my copy with you. I'll make sure that gets up there.
No, you'll check down at the desk, and I'm sure they'll make copies
Oh.
for you.
Understand. Okay,
And make sure that the board members get a copy of that. Thank you.
We'll handle that. Thank you. Okay. Anything you'd like to say about it? Oh, you didn't say what this is. Sorry. Tell us about your new employment.
Okay, I gained full-time employment with Oceanside Veterinary Hospital, and they did hire me as a veterinary assistant, closing shift, including all Saturdays. We will be doing 10 to 11-hour days. Yes, I was welcomed on board because of my experience, especially working with cats and that sort of thing, because a lot of people don't seem to want to work with cats, but I do. And the thing I love about that place is that they see that I am teachable, and they are teachers. So they're willing to work with me from any skills that I am lacking in to train me up. In fact, they have a board where they will post your accomplishments and that sort of thing. I will be working with 3 to 4 veterinarians. There are at least 3 RVTs on staff as well. And they are aware that I am here today to try to get my license reinstated. They know what my background is, and they are all hoping for the best for me. But they've hired me again as a veterinary assistant so I can work my way up.
Thank you. Could you step forward with the letter, and I can pass it to the board to at least look at in case they have any questions? Could you start it down that way? Thank you.
Shall I continue while that's
Yes.
circulating? Okay. Anything further you'd like to say about employment before we go to rehabilitation?
I don't think so.
Okay. So
When,
Lisa,
when were you first employed at the Oceanside Hospital?
I was hired on March 28th of 2019. My
Oh.
first day was April 13th of 2019. So just this last Saturday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
okay. So we know that you've been working on this rehabilitation. I said earlier, since the time you voluntarily surrendered your license, but realistically since the last DUI conviction, correct?
Correct.
And the first steps towards rehabilitation would have been the court-ordered programs in relation to your DUIs, correct?
Correct.
And can you tell us briefly what those were and how you completed them?
Okay. I did actually initiate I used my own initiative to get into the 6-month residential rehab stepping stone. In addition to completing the 6 months residential rehab, which consisted of not only AA, therapy, relapse prevention, etc., I also completed a SCRAM, which is the alcohol bracelets that I actually put on myself as well, from June 24th until November 21st of 2014 to make sure that I did not drink going through the process.
From June
Yeah.
24th until when?
November 21st of 2014.
And let's just say SCRAM is a anklet that reads alcohol absorption or alcohol release from the skin. So it would tell the reader that you've been drinking, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And you said you voluntarily did that. Does that mean it was not a court-ordered punishment?
It was not a court-ordered punishment. I voluntarily did that.
And same with the 6-month treatment program.
That is correct.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I also completed an 18-month DUI program. 25 days of public works, public service, which I completed from, started in February of 2015 and actually completed in May of 2015. And paid all my fines by December of 2015 as well.
I'd like to give the court the page number of proof of completion of SCRAM, but I'm looking for it in a moment.
Okay.
I also did complete 2 classes of MAD, not just 1, but 2 classes of MAD as well.
What does MAD stand for?
Mothers Against Drunk Driving. What we do is we are ordered to attend a class where we will hear the stories, if you will, from victims as well as, in the 2 that I particularly went, an offender as well. And hear what the outcome was for both. The reality of the situations and the damages that happens with DUIs.
I didn't hear the last thing you
And the
said.
damages that occur with DUIs.
Thank you.
The proof of completion of SCRAM with the dates is AGO 049 and AGO 050, 51, and 52 are all letters from Stepping Stone, looking like progress reviews dated January 23rd of 15, February 11 of 15, March 25 of 15, and they are all positive.
Thank you.
And then proof of, I'm not sure I have proof of MAD. I'll be looking for it.
Okay, what I'd also like
I need you to stop just a second. I want to give the board members a chance to find those pages and glance at those pages if that's their choice. Proceed.
I did find proof of completion of MAD on AGO 080. 2 courses, 12/9 of 14 and October 14th of 14. You also took an alcohol class.
Yes, that was the 18-month DUI program where we would attend weekly group sessions. They required one class of AA per week, but I did many more at that time. And it was a phase program where as we went through different phases, we would eventually graduate. But again, it talked about the damages that drunk driving does, not only to us, but to other people.
Proof of completion of the driving under the influence program is AGO 082. Successful proof of completion. Okay. How about this? You also did 25 days of public service work?
Yes, I did, and I did that from February of 2015 and finished March 27th of 2015.
Actually, it's May 27th.
May 27th, thank you, of 2015.
And that page is AGO 081. What's this?
We do that. Community resource, case manager.
Oh.
That I work with to help me find a job.
Oh, that's different. All right, are we back?
We're never on.
Have you said all the rehabilitation you did in relation to the court aspect?
Well, in relation to the court aspect, I'd also like to add that during my 6-month stay at Stepping Stone, the biggest issue with me was moving away from home. I mean, I'm older, but I was scared to move away from home. So I was completely immersed into an environment where I had to learn to live life in sobriety. I had no choice. There was drug testing, random drug testing that was done. There was, again, required AA meetings, relapse prevention. But we also learned, I got my first taste of therapy there as well, and learned how important therapy was in my life. We had weekly sessions with a therapist. I took classes on how to manage my anger, because I carried a lot of anger at that time too, mainly in myself. And through just life skills classes, it's created a foundation for me to understand what I had to do in the future to live my life in recovery and not go back to where I was. It created my foundation.
We have in our packet AGO 053 through AGO 073, proof of completion of AA meetings, and in addition we have some supplemental ones. They'd be in the back. Let me find those. Here's some more. AGO 156 through AGO 159. These span a time frame of March 19th, 15 through February 27, 19, and I know there's a few additional more.
Yes, I offered Ms. Pullen an additional page of the meetings that I've attended from 2/27 to this last Monday.
So that's many, many, many entries. I'm not going to add them up. Tell us about your AA experience. How often were you going in general? What can you say about that?
Okay, and in 2015 through say 2016, 2017, I attended them almost every day. Especially when I arrived home, I needed to create my foundation so I can learn how to live life in sobriety at home, not in a structured environment anymore. So I continued working with my sponsor. Went through the steps a couple of times actually, and learned to live life in sobriety using a lot of the foundations of the steps to practice in my life outside. As I got more involved with my volunteer work and more involved with getting back to work again, I still attended 2 to 3 meetings a week, and I would say about the last year, again because of working and doing volunteer work and working with a therapy cat that I'm trying to get going on in a convalescent home.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I have no idea what you just said.
Working with a therapy cat that I have to visit in convalescent homes.
Okay, thank you.
So
Please try to slow down so that the board members hear what you're saying.
Okay. And I currently go to a meeting once a week, but I do talk with my sponsor at least twice a week. She is my sponsor, has been my sponsor for the last year and a half, 42 years sober.
So you attended every day between 2015, 2016, or 17 or
yes,
so?
Yes, I have to refer to the list to show.
I didn't hear what you said.
I would have to refer to my list to verify.
Okay, and then you said then you went to 2 to 3 times a week. Do you remember when that started?
Again, I'd have to refer to my list if I may.
Yes.
Through 16 here, January, February, quite often, March, 23rd, 25th. These are as of March of 17th, it seems to be every other day. In April of 17, maybe once a week at this point, 14, 17.
Mm-hmm.
Just, you want to say that?
Okay, so approximately April 14th of 2017, I started going approximately 1 to twice a week, and I've been maintaining that to current day.
Thank you. So you go at least once a week?
That is correct. I mainly focus on my home group on Wednesday nights.
Is your sponsor in that group?
Yes, she is.
Great. Is there anything else you want to say about your AA meetings before we move on to something else?
I just will continue to attend my AE meetings. It's created a wonderful outlet for me between the steps and the support that I have in those meetings, and being in a safe place to be able to discuss any problems that I've had in the past, and also to help people, newcomers that come in as well in the future.
You stated earlier that at Stepping Stone you got a taste of therapy, and you've continued with therapy.
That is correct.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. In March of 2016, I chose to seek out individual therapy because I was still having other problems. I mean, alcohol was not a problem anymore, but there were still personal issues that I still needed to deal with in life. So I sought out therapy, individual therapy, in March of 2016. I do see my individual therapist about once every 2 weeks due to affordability reasons. And throughout, that was again in 2016. And April 2016 to 2017, I took additional classes that she offered. One was a 16-week course in what we call Dialectical Behavioral Therapy, and the second was Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. Both of those classes were once a week.
The second was what?
ACT and Commitment Therapy. I'm sorry, Acceptance and Commitment Therapy. Acronym is ACT. And those, again, gave me future tools to help deal with my emotions, to help me learn how to value myself, and to initiate self-care and self-compassion.
And both of both of those cognitive behavioral therapies, dialectical behavioral therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy, are documented in this letter, AGO 074, dated May 22, 2018, signed by Dr. Halliday, correct?
Correct. In October of 2017, my therapist suggested that I start attending a weekly group therapy so I can enhance my interpersonal communication skills with both men and women. So every Monday night I do attend this group on a weekly basis, and we discuss our individual problems. We'll get feedback, and it's just basically a psychodynamic therapy to help you learn tools in these classes to help us outside in everyday life.
There are 3 letters from the Halliday Center, which is the location we're discussing,
Correct.
in the packet, AGO 076, 077, the second page on 078 and 079, and these are signed by therapists in the Halliday Center, is that correct?
Yes, Pamela Giles is actually the instructor for the Dialectical Behavior Therapy course.
And her letter is dated May 31 of 2017.
And Jeff Kleinberg is the instructor for the Acceptance and Commitment Therapy.
That letter dated July 15th of 17. And then, who's this?
Oh, Dr. Reed Kessler was the psychologist who started the group therapy when I was there, and then it moved on to my individual therapist, Dr. Deborah Halliday, who currently moderates the group.
And Dr. Kessler's letter is, as mentioned, AGO 079. Okay, and I believe there's also a more recent letter from Dr. Halliday as well. Do you think so?
Yes, November of 2018.
I found it. AGO 170 and 171 is a recent letter, more recent, November of 18, from Dr. Halliday, stating that Ms. Grosso has worked hard to right her wrongs and done a significant amount of growing up, and it's a positive letter with great comments about you in it. So your
I didn't hear a response to that. She said it's a positive letter with great comments.
I
Is that
stated
correct?
thank you.
Okay, I didn't hear it. I apologize.
What I want to make clear is your relationship with the Halliday Center is ongoing and robust, correct?
Correct.
You find value in that.
Absolutely.
And the ACT and the DBT courses are complete at this point?
Correct.
Okay. But you do the weekly, just state what you do right now.
What I do currently is I attend the weekly group therapy classes, And every 2 weeks, I see my individual therapist. But again, my individual therapist also moderates the group therapy that I'm in.
Anything else you want to say about therapy specifically?
What I can say about therapy, that it's given me many, many tools to help create a new life, basically. My rehabilitation and my recovery has had to be a change in thought, had to be a change in outlook, and had to be a change in lifestyle. And learning how to promote self-care for myself has been one of the most important things. The second most important thing that I've learned is to now respond to things. I don't react to things anymore. I learned how to respond by using the tools such as what we call wise mind, which is a combination of our emotional mind and our thoughtful mind to create a proper response. I've also learned how to manage my anger too. I did not like the person that I was, and I needed to change everything about myself. After that last DUI, I needed to change, and I knew I needed to change. So I've taken many, many steps to create a new person, and I hope that everybody will see that at the end of the day.
And one of those affirmative steps was to have the DUIs expunged, correct?
Correct.
Proof of the expungement is AGO 092 and 093. What is this? I'm sorry, Your Honor, I'm just making sure I'm telling you. There's also a AGO 094 and 095. Okay. And in California, an expungement means they withdraw the guilty plea and dismiss the case, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So we've gone through all of the aspects of the packet. How you've told us about your support system. You've told us about your sponsor and your ongoing group and individual therapy. What else do you have in place to manage any stressors that might occur?
Well, a lot of self-care for myself. I've learned to create a work-life balance. I have taken Tai Chi, yoga, I exercise. I enjoy nature and spend time with my pets. I've learned to practice mindfulness and to make sure that I can ground myself now, because I have to know that thoughts are just thoughts, and I can't react or respond to them. I have to let them float like a cloud sometimes. Thoughts meaning the thoughts that I may use to bring myself down or beat myself up like I did in the past.
Do you have anything you'd like to say before we turn it over for questions?
I would just like to say that I hope everyone is aware of the work that I've done. I realize the gravity of the situation of those DUIs, and I wish I didn't let it get that far. I was going through a time, at that time, where I had low self-esteem and low self-confidence, and I used alcohol as a tool. The doctors told me that I was self-medicating, and I thought alcohol was my friend for a while until, if you will, it turned on me, or I let it turn on me, to the point where I abused it, and I made poor decisions, and I regret the decisions that I made at that time. But I used that time, I learned, to move forward and clear away the wreckage of my past, to try to create a new person, and I'm here today to hopefully get my license reinstated and to show the person that I am now.
What would that mean to you if you got your license reinstated?
I value my license. It took me a long time to get my license. I didn't get it until 2011. To be able to have it shows a lot of respect for the work that I've done in the community. It shows a respect that for something with the state of California as well. And it shows respect that I can show someone what I've done, what I've studied, and what I can do. It will allow me to help animals in a much further capacity than I'm able to help them now, because there are certain things that an RVT can do that as an assistant I am unable to do. So it would definitely further my career, and I value my career. Otherwise I wouldn't be here today.
Well said. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Any questions?
Good morning, Ms. Grosso.
Good morning.
Ms. Grosser, are you an alcoholic?
I am an alcoholic in recovery. Oh, I'm sorry. I am an alcoholic in recovery.
And what is the date of
And
your...
I need you to move the microphone forward. I'm having trouble hearing.
Thank you. Is this better?
Thank you.
And what is the date of your sobriety?
Date of my sobriety is 6/16 of 2014. That is the day I had my last drink.
Can you tell us a little bit about your triggers for drinking?
My triggers for drinking were anger, low self-esteem, low confidence, and being upset with myself.
And do you feel that the therapy that you've done, your volunteer work, everything that you've talked about, have helped you with those triggers?
Absolutely. The volunteer work, the therapy has helped me to learn that I can value myself, that I can value what I do, and it's an asserted confidence in my abilities again.
And can you tell us a little bit about what you do to cope with stress?
What I do to cope with stress, for example, again, I do yoga and Tai Chi, which are grounding mechanisms. I talk to other people in my support network, my close friends, my sponsor, my therapist. I've created a support network which I did not have before. I'm no longer alone.
Then your support network includes close friends, your sponsor.
My support network includes my sponsor, my close friends, my therapist, the people in my group as well.
Do you And do you have a support network at home?
I do have a support network at home, yes. I have a friend that I've lived with for 18 years who is fully aware and is supportive of what I've been doing and is proud of me.
Does that friend drink?
No.
One of the letters mentioned social anxiety. Can you tell us how you've been working on your social anxiety and what you're doing to cope with that?
Yes, I work on my social anxiety by, first of all, being mindful and in the present situation. I take a lot of deep breaths. I don't let the thoughts grab onto me, if that makes any sense. And I put myself in the here and now so I can achieve my goals.
And you provided proof of a lot of the AA meetings that you've attended. Can you tell us what step you found was the most challenging?
The step that was the most challenging was step 4. That was a major awareness step. I had to put down not only my wrongs, but what my involvements were. In addition to that, I also was able to see the positives. But by putting those down on paper and seeing that in front of me, helped me to realize the things that I needed to work on and move forward with. A lot of times people feel that step 5 is the hardest, but finding another person that I can trust in my current support group was relieving and easy to do that step 5, but step 4 was the hardest.
And you talked about your sponsor, who you said, I believe, has been sober for approximately 41 years?
42.
42 years. Did you ask that sponsor to write a letter of recommendation for you?
I did not. No, I did not.
Okay, and why not?
I just never got around to it. We were talking on the phone, and she's 82 years old and going through some health problems right now, so I just didn't want to bother her with it.
Okay. And are you currently sponsoring anyone?
No.
Have you thought about doing that at some point?
I've thought about doing it, but again, I'm continuing to work on myself right now. So what I do as part of my commitments with AA is I substitute, do what we call substitute secretarying. If the secretary's not there, I will go ahead and lead the group. I'm often a leader as well at many of the AA meetings, and I offer my hand to newcomers every time.
And do you have plans to continue attending AA meetings if your registration is reinstated?
Absolutely.
And in terms of those plans, how often do you plan to attend?
Well, again, I'm going to be working many hours a day, so at least once a week, at least.
Do you plan to continue with all of your support networks if your registration is reinstated?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, my current employer is well aware of my Monday night groups and has forwarded the opportunity for me to keep going to my Monday night groups. And again, I've talked to my therapist, and we'll continue scheduling once I get a schedule going on that is permanent.
And I was going to ask about your new employment and your conflicts with group therapy at night. Will you make arrangements to continue attending meetings as well as the therapy that you mentioned on Monday and Wednesday nights with this new position at Oceanside Veterinary Hospital?
Yes, as I just mentioned, Oceanside Veterinary Hospital has given me the opportunity to continue with my Monday night groups. They will be giving me appropriate time to leave so I can make it to my group on Monday nights. And then as far as the Wednesday night groups, I did tell them that I may or may not be able to make it to that specific AA meeting. And we'll be looking for other meetings. As a matter of fact, my sponsor and I will be looking together to attend meetings.
And do you have any criminal convictions that the board is not aware of?
They are aware of all of my criminal convictions.
Okay. And have you been arrested since filing your petition for reinstatement?
No.
Okay. Do you have any pending criminal litigations against you?
No.
Do you understand why the board may have concerns about your ability to practice safely?
I do.
And if the board and Your Honor chooses to potentially place you on probation or reinstate your registration with the probationary registration, are you willing to submit to random drug testing as part of those terms?
I'm willing to submit to random drug testing, but my main concern with that is the cost factor. My goal is to get my license reinstated, and I understand that there may be disciplinary actions imposed on me because I have to prove to you that I'm not a danger to the public. But the main concern is those tests cost approximately $100 each time you have to take them. And randomly, I've seen in other reports from other technicians, you could take anywhere from 2 a month to 8 a month, and that's a major concern for me that I'll be working to take care of the take care of drug testing. My other concern is with the hours that I'm working, the location that I may need to go to is 32 miles away from my home. It's the only one that's a 24-hour facility. The facility near my house is open only at the times that I'm working. So time factor and cost is a concern. I understand that I will also have to pay a $100 probationary fee as well. I get that. So my goal is to get my license reinstated. My fear is that I'm not going to be able to afford it.
Do you know what your hours are going to be with your new employment?
They're variable, but I will be doing closing shift. They close at 7 o'clock, but that doesn't mean I'll actually get out at 7 o'clock. I can get out 8, 9 o'clock at night. I can tell you that I will be doing 10-hour days, which will be 11, with an hour lunch. My days are variable. Don't know my schedule yet. Again, I just started.
Okay. And you just mentioned potentially having 10 to 11-hour days. So those
Yes.
are long days.
Yes.
How do you plan to cope with having such a long day now that you've started this new employment versus before when you were working part-time jobs?
Gratefully, my occupation is very close to home, so I'll be able to come home on my lunch, and I don't have a 45 to an hour minute drive like I did when I worked part-time at the Feral Cat Coalition.
Have you discussed with Oceanside Veterinary Hospital in taking you on as a registered veterinary technician if your registration is reinstated?
What they stated to me was that if I did get my license reinstated, at that time we will negotiate possibly a more pay rate. But right now I am hired as a veterinary assistant. The hope is there that I get the veterinary technician license back, but that's not contingent on my employment.
I have nothing further.
Thank you. Any questions? Let's start.
Thank you so much for coming today and just going through kind of the history of what you've been going through since your DUIs. I commend you on your sobriety. I know it's hard to go through that. I have a lot of family members who are sober. I saw on the expungement paperwork that it said the court finds the defendant does not have the ability to pay. The court cost is waived. What is the court cost for these to get it expunged?
Okay, in order for, at that time, I wasn't working. I wasn't working for most of the time that I was between 2014 and 2017. So basically, they waived the court costs, which honestly, $120 at the time.
Okay. And how have you been able to get by financially?
Financially, I have been able to get by living off of my savings, what little savings I had left, and finally got the opportunity to get a part-time job in 2017, and I've been living off of that. I also, I lost my medical insurance back in 2017 as well, so I did have to apply for Medi-Cal and for food stamps to basically be able to get the help that I needed, and thankfully now that I've gotten a full-time job, I can move forward.
How long did you have to utilize social services to get by?
I used social services. It was only Medi-Cal
Yeah.
and food stamps.
Yes.
It wasn't anything else.
Yeah.
From October 2017 until April, which in fact at the end of this month, I need to start getting off of that. I was told to, there was a certain procedure I had to go through and wait through until I can actually get off.
So it was like roughly a year you were on social services?
About a year and 4 months, October 2017.
Okay.
To April 2019.
That is correct. I will be at ending that the last week of April, now that I have a full-time job.
And how do you feel? Like, how do you feel in your sobriety? Do you feel confident in your sobriety? Do you feel like, you know, you're closing, right? So you're working these long days. Are you worried about being able to go to your meetings once a month? I know that your employer said Mondays you'd be able to go to your group. So do you feel like that's enough for you to stay confident in your sobriety and that it'll support you enough to stay clean and sober?
Absolutely. My sponsor only lives about a mile away from me as well, and we talk on the phone consistently. I will have days off, and I have an Alana Club that offers meetings from 8 o'clock in the morning until, 7 o'clock in the morning until 8 o'clock at night. That's only about 3 miles away from me, and I'm able to go anytime on my days off.
And are you able to drive now?
Yes, I had my driver's license fully reinstated in August of 2017.
Okay.
So that was a lot of the reason why I was unable to work, because public transportation is difficult to get around San Diego.
Right.
And then the criminal record as well was a hindrance until I got everything cleared and expunged.
Okay. And then, so I know you had driving on the wrong side of the road and you hit a home. Was anyone injured? Was anyone injured in that?
For the initial DUI in March, actually, I hit a planter at my house. It was when I pulled into my driveway. No one was hurt. It was just a plant. Yeah, anyway, not just, but I hit a planter at my house, yes.
Okay. Okay. And I don't have any additional questions at this time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Question?
Good morning. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You've done a lot, and I'm really impressed by how you carry yourself, your letter, the responsibility you've taken for your actions, how serious you are about this, and how much you respect the RVT license to have hired an attorney and shown up today and told us your story. So thank you. I don't think most people here know what DBT is. I see you're standing up. So how much that might help you in managing your stressors. Do you mind explaining that a little bit to the group?
Yes. Dialectical behavior therapy is a study of mindfulness, helping me to be in the present moment. It helps me to take, as I said a little bit before, not to give my thoughts, my mean thoughts or my troublesome thoughts meaning, to try to let them kind of float by as a cloud. I learned stress tolerance tools to learn to ground myself and deal with the stresses that are in front of me. It teaches me how to respond and not react by taking the tools of my emotional mind and my reasonable mind and doing what we call wise mind, to give me the tools to think things through, to not react. Also, it helps me with interpersonal skills as well, to help understand compassion for other people and empathy for other people, and give them the opportunity to speak their mind and help myself to understand, to be able to relate to that person better, for example.
Thank you. How much has all of this cost you?
Wow. Since the beginning, about $100,000. About $100,000 when I count the DUIs and all the fines and the things committed to the DUIs, the subrogation claim, the residential rehab, the loss of my car, the constant costs for my therapy as well. I mean, I spent a lot of money, but that's okay, because I had to do something to change, and I've dug deep in many different ways to change. So yes, that's a fair factor, $100,000.
Thank you.
So again, thank you for being here and answering our questions. So have you addressed an underlying cause for your drinking?
One of the main reasons of the underlying cause of my drinking was the anger that I had towards myself. The anger that I had towards myself, I was never happy with myself. I don't know how to go any deeper than that. I felt like I was a failure in life, that I never completed things, that I was always going 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. And then also a lot of my anger too, it helped to kind of quench the anger. I felt at the time that the world was unfair as well to me, and that was being realized now, that was being very selfish, but it backfired on me. I mean, it wasn't my friend, it became my enemy. This is why, after all this time in my life, when I learned about therapy, I was too prideful to go to therapy. When I was a child, my parents thought I was too good for therapy or something, that I didn't need it, when I know that I did back then. But I'm here now, working with my therapist and learning my underlying causes. I'd have to say that was a lot of my underlying cause for my drinking.
So your contract says that, and you stated that you're going to, in your new job, work the late shift. And
Yes.
so what time of the day will you start?
Oh, we discussed verbally about 9 to 9:30 in the morning.
And so would it be possible, if you did get probation and needed to do drug testing, that you could do that before you started work?
It's possible, however, with the traffic all going south in San Diego in the morning, that might prove time-wise a bit difficult. The place in Oceanside doesn't open until 9 o'clock, but I'd be starting at 9 o'clock.
That's the questions I have.
Yes.
Thank you for coming, and my questions have been asked. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, sir?
Thank you as well for coming. In regards to your petition package, congratulations on this package. It's very complete. It's one of the nicest petition reinstatement packages I've ever seen. So good job there. I just had a couple of questions on it. First, regarding continuing education, I think you provided proof of 52 hours of continuing education over the course of about 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about a little bit over 10 hours a year. How many continuing education hours are required per year for RVTs?
RVTs, it's 20 every 2 years, I believe.
Okay. Starting on page AGO 092, these are your petitions for dismissals, and 092 says that the petition is granted, 093 petition is granted, 094 petition is granted, and then what are the other ones? 095. This is a petition for relief, and it says that that it's opposed. So
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
what is on page 095 where it says a petition for relief, and there's an oppose box that's checked?
All right. For AGO 095, that was the initial case, which was not granted. But if you look at AGO 094 with the same Superior Court case number SCN 333507, it was ultimately granted.
Why was it opposed the first time?
The first time it was opposed, I went in and talked to a judge, and he opposed it, and I requested legal counsel at that time, a public defender. So we went no further. Went back, approximately a month later, and it was granted.
Okay. And then if your petition for reinstatement is granted, you are aware that you will have to pay for the investigation cost
Yes.
of about $1,137,
Yes.
and you're able to pay that?
Yes.
Okay. That answers all my questions, but I would like to say that I am extremely proud of you. I think that you've come a very long way. I know it's not easy, but you've hit it out of the ballpark. You've checked all the questions that we would have. You know what your sobriety date is. You have a sponsor. You've shown me evidence of rehabilitation. And the reason why we need to know that you've been rehabilitated is because our jobs are so very important. I love my profession. I love being a veterinarian. And I can tell that you love our profession as well. And it's because of that love of the profession that you've done so much really hard work. And you are not a failure in life. You should be extremely, extremely proud of yourself. So good job.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I think almost everything that I had questions about, or everything, really has been answered. So, but I just wanted to say the same thing as a public member and as someone who brings my animals to vets and RVTs. You really have shown how much you care about the job, the vocation, and the pets involved. Your continuing CE through the last few years with all the rest of the sobriety rehab you've done is really very, very exemplary. And I just want to say thank you very much for working so hard. It really sounds like your life is well-grounded, and you've spent a lot of time, a lot of money to get it that way, and I hope you have a nice rest of your life. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
So most of my questions and comments have been covered. I wanted to commend you on being a cat wrangler. As an RVT, they are my least favorite species to work with, so I know that makes you valued in your hospital. And the only thing I have left is you had mentioned stress relief and spending time with your pets. Tell us about your pets.
Oh, yes. Well, I do have a few cats at home, ranging from 16 to 1. All of them are rescues, actually, and there are a few that have medical issues, such as renal failure. I have one cat that has ear polyps, renal failure, IBD. So, doing some holistic therapy as well as Western medicine to help him along. And again, all are rescues. But my most special little guy, 2 of them. One is called Cat Friend, and he was a feral that was neutered. He was obviously dumped and came into my life, and he's a very special boy. And then Oliver Everett came into my life last year. He was a 4-week-old kitten that was going to be put to sleep due to behavior problems. Well, I rescued him, took him home, and now he's to the point where I can put a vest on him, and we can go to places and visit at the beach and visit convalescent homes and children, and he just brings out the best in people, and he loves doing it. And yeah, he's my special boy.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Would you like to make a closing statement?
I have a brief closing statement.
Excuse me. Did you want to make one? Okay. I just wanted that on the record. I saw you shake your head. Proceed.
Lisa, as you've heard, everyone is saying you're exemplary, and we're all, including me, proud of your good work. I wanted to point out, I'm looking at AGO 121, which is the disciplinary guidelines, and I'm noticing, or I'm reading, that minimum penalties may be considered if there's evidence of certain things, and I just wanted to get on the record that you have demonstrated these things. Evidence of self-initiated rehabilitation is something that may be relied upon, and as Ms. Grosso said, she initiated the SCRAM in relationship to her DUI and the 6-month stepping stone program. In addition, we've talked about the various therapies that were not court ordered or ordered by anyone, that she continues to maintain these 5 years later. She also has done pro bono services to nonprofit organizations, as we listed quite a number of them in her history of 25 years of being in this field. Some other examples of self-initiated rehabilitation were specific training in areas of weakness. As you know, she did the 18-month DUI class, which is a lot of specific training around that, and then her DBT training and her ACT training that she's described to you in detail. They call for full restitution. I didn't see any of that being necessary, but she did complete all of her treatments, court ordered. We showed proof, and also the expungements are constructive proof that she did everything properly in regard to the DUI. Full compliance with all laws since that time. And then on AGO, and that was in regard to the penalties for section 4883 sub A. AGO 125 is 4883 sub G. AGO 126. And it basically says the same thing, that the appropriate reports should be provided, which we did do. These discuss 2 years probation. We, of course, would like a full and free license based on all of the work that Ms. Grosso has done. However, should probation be offered, she would gratefully accept. We would request the 2-year mark rather than any other amount. And as she said, her big concern is around the cost prohibitive nature of a lot of the substance abuse related terms. So it would be our request that she not be considered a risk of substance abuse, since she has a considerable amount of structures and resources in place to maintain her sobriety, which she has proved she's maintained for the last 5 years. She's proved that by her statements, but also there's zero indicia that there's any trouble. No arrests, no further DUIs, no public intoxication charges, nothing that would give us reason to believe that she has an ongoing substance abuse issue, and she has thrived in her life, which also is indicia of lack of substance abuse. So if possible, the terms which do not deal with substance abuse would help make her probationary period more reasonable financially, which is really one of her bigger concerns. She wants to be able to fulfill. We don't want to put her in I don't want her put in a position where she may fail just based on lack of financial resources. And with that, I rest.
Thank you. Before the record is closed in this case, we have the 2 documents that you presented to us. And for some reason, I'm thinking there were 2 other pages as well.
As far as the employment, it's only the 2, Your Honor. But we do have fresh AAs.
That's what it was. Thank you.
Okay. We have 1 page of fresh AAs, and this is the employment agreement again. Oh, we have a fresh continuing education dated April 4th of 19.
I have one from March as well if we need that.
And she has one from March as well. If I'm making copies, I'll make copies.
Okay, if you could step forward with those so I can mark them as part of that record, and then I'll give you a chance to make the copies while we're in the other case.
Yes, Your Honor. And also a fresh letter of recommendation from Dr. Elaine Jordan dated February 27th of 19, which the DAG has seen.
And you've seen all of these documents, correct? Yes. Okay, where did the documents go?
Right here.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. And for the record, the board members are reviewing these documents at this time.
Those certificates are not in this file, right?
Yes. Just 1 second. I want to give everybody a chance.
Okay, I'll just make copies. Oh, this is fresh. Yeah.
And for the record, I will mark these exhibits as Exhibit 8, and I will characterize the documents as documentation from the petitioner provided during the hearing. And included as part of this packet will be the employment agreement, the notice to the employee, the list, strike that, the AA meeting dates between November 2018 and April 2019. Two continuing education certificates, one dated March 2019 and one dated April 2019, and a letter of support from C. Elaine Jordan, dated February 27, 2019. I am marking these as Exhibit 8 and putting a clip on these exhibits. And as you make copies for the board members, if you could leave them in this order so that I can also identify them on the final exhibit list as I just described.
Yes, Your Honor.
For the record, the board members have had an opportunity to look at each and every one of these new documents, and they may have precipitated additional questions. So we'll do that quickly, and then we will go off the record in this case. Any questions? No.
I just had one more question, and it actually isn't related to that. How much is your therapy each session or each month?
She gives me a special discounted rate at this time, but it's still costing me about $200 a month.
Okay, thank you.
Questions? No. And I have polled board members visually, and there are no other questions, we will recess at this time and go off the record. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And I trust you understand the procedure at this point. Oh, okay. If you could explain to her what the procedure is, and then we'll take maybe a 5-minute recess just to for everybody to take a comfort break, and then we'll start. On the record, this is before the Veterinary Board of California in the matter of the petition for termination of probation of Amanda Jones. The case number is 462-017-00578. The OAH number is 20190304442. Our location is the Mission Inn Hotel, 3649 Mission Inn Avenue in Riverside, California. My name is Valerie Johnson. I am the administrative law judge assigned to sit with the Board of Veterinary Medical, Veterinary Medical Board, and a quorum of the board is present. And could you identify yourself, starting from my right?
I'm Jennifer Laredo.
Kathy Bowler.
Mark Nunez.
Jamie Noland. Cheryl Waterhouse.
Christina Bradbury.
Alana Yanez.
Thank you very much. Please state your appearance for the record.
Good morning, Deputy Attorney General Tori Poland, appearing on behalf of the people of State of California in accordance with Business and Professions Code Section 2760.1 and Government Code Section 11522.
And you're representing yourself today, is that correct, Ms. Jones? Thank you. Would you like to make an opening statement, ma'am?
Yes, Your Honor. Thank you. We are here today on a petition for modification or termination of probation on petitioner's registered veterinary technician registration. I would like to now offer a summary of this case. On November 1st, 2016, petitioner submitted an application for her registered veterinary technician registration in the state of California. Petitioner disclosed a 2012 conviction on her application for a violation of Vehicle Code Section 23-152, subsection B, driving with a blood alcohol content of 0.08% or more. Petitioner entered into a stipulation with the board where she was issued a probationary registered veterinary technician registration number 12441. She agreed to be placed on 2 years of probation, and the terms included submitting to drug testing and abstaining from alcohol use and controlled substances. On November 2nd, 2017, petitioner was issued her probationary registered veterinary technician registration. Her period of probation is from November 2nd, 2017 through November 2nd, 2019. Petitioner has submitted to biological fluid testing approximately 25 times. On February 23, 2019, petitioner submitted a urine sample that was positive for ethyl glucuronide or ETG and ethyl sulfate or ETS metabolites for alcohol. It is petitioner's burden to demonstrate that her probation should be modified or terminated. Therefore, we have nothing further at this time but reserve the right to cross-examine petitioner or to call her if she does choose not to testify.
Thank you. You said on February 23rd, 2019. Thank you. Would you like to make a statement, or would you simply like to be sworn in? Okay, could you stand please and raise your right hand?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, could we go through the packet first?
I'm sorry, I skipped that.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much for the reminder. Proceed.
Thank you. I would like to mark for identification and offer into evidence the following exhibits. The board members, Your Honor, and petitioner have been provided with a copy of these same exhibits. Exhibit 1 is the 2 notice of hearings and proof of service. Exhibit 2 is the certification of license history. Exhibit 3 is the petition for reinstatement. Exhibit 4 is the probationary license decision, stipulation, and order.
What page does Exhibit 4 start with?
That starts with AGO-029. And it goes through AGO-036.
Thank you.
Exhibit 5 is the probation violation letter dated March 4th, 2019, and the test results. That goes from AGO-037 through AGO-038. Exhibit 6 is a letter from petitioner dated March 6, 2019. And that goes from pages AGO-039 through AGO-040. Exhibit 7 is the test history report. It goes from AGO-041 through AGO-043. Exhibit 8 is the probation report that goes from AGO-044 through AGO-045. And lastly, Exhibit 9 are the disciplinary guidelines that go from AGO-046 through AGO-085.
And you have a copy of all of these documents, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. And you've had a chance to review all of these documents? And do you have any objection to the admission of any of the documents?
No, ma'am, other than the test result that came back positive.
And what's your objection to that?
Well, I haven't drank any alcohol for that test to be positive.
Okay. Have you had a chance to discuss that with the Deputy Attorney General before today?
Well, yeah, we spoke. I
Okay.
I wrote a letter to Ms. Diddy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you like to respond to that?
We did speak about it, Your Honor, and Ms. Jones did provide an email letter sent to her probation monitor, Sydney Villarreal, which was provided in this packet.
And it's exhibit...
That is Exhibit 6.
Okay. Did you want to respond to her objection, though?
If the court chooses not to admit the test results, which would be Exhibit 7, then I would reserve the right to use them as potential impeachment.
I just need a minute or two to look at Exhibit 7.
And for the record, Your Honor, there are also test results as part of Exhibit 5, which is AGO-038.
Do you have anybody from the lab here to testify about the results, or
I don't, Your Honor.
anything in terms of the validity of the test results or anything like that?
I don't have any witnesses here today since it's the petitioner's burden.
Okay. I'll admit Exhibit 5 and Exhibit 7 as administrative hearsay, and the remainder of the documents are admitted into evidence.
Your Honor.
Yes.
May I point out that Exhibit 1 is a notice of hearing notice for Ms. Grosso and not for Ms. Jones?
I can address that. This was a hearing notice sent by a...
Excuse me just a minute. I don't think that there's an issue because Ms. Jones is here. So she had notice of the hearing and she knew to be here. So I think that deficiency is resolved by her presence.
It just says, Dear Ms. Grosso.
I understand. I appreciate that. But she's here, so she's waived any objection to that.
Okay.
Just a typo with the addressee on the letter.
I understand. So with respect to Exhibits 5 and 7, for the record and for the board members, what that means is since these documents are admitted as administrative hearsay, they can only be used to support other evidence as part of the case, and the Deputy Attorney General has indicated that she doesn't have anyone from the lab here to talk about the validity of these results or any declaration from the lab. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
Okay.
I may potentially have one witness depending on how the petitioner's testimony goes, but it is not anyone from the lab.
Thank you. Anyone who can verify the validity of the test results?
No, this individual does not work for the lab.
Thank you. Exhibits 1 through 4 are admitted. Exhibits 6, 8, and 9 are admitted. And again, 5 and 7 are admitted as administrative hearsay. Anything further?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Could you stand, please, and raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Have a seat, please, and state your full name for the record and spell your name.
Amanda Grace Jones, AMANDARAYEJONES.
Thank you. You may proceed. This is your opportunity to make your statement to the board.
Well, I had a position today for termination or modification of my probation. Within the last 16 months, I've done everything that the board has asked of me, paid my fees on time, done at least 25 tests. I've checked in every day with lab source. I've always provided my monthly reports through my veterinarians that I work with. I provided my monthly reports. I've always gotten good reviews from my medical director, Dr. Johnson, who oversees my case. He signs my paperwork every month. I've provided letters of recommendations from my hospital manager, my tech supervisor, and veterinarians that I work with. I asked that the board grant my petition for termination. It's very costly to pay my monthly fees on top of testing twice a month, on top of the lab fees. On a technician salary, it's really hard to make ends meet when you're the head of household.
Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay. You said it's hard to make ends meet when you're head You said it's hard to make ends meet when you're head of household. Who else is in your household besides yourself?
Me and my fiance.
Thank you. Did you have any questions, ma'am?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. Good morning, Ms. Jones.
Morning.
When was the last time that you drank alcohol?
In 2012, when I made a bad decision, I received my DUI. And mind you, I was only drinking socially. I had a few drinks. I got in the car and I got a DUI. Since then, I did all my court fees. I did all my DUI classes, and I haven't drank since 2012. Even socially, just prior to even applying for my license, the scare of me receiving the DUI was just pretty life-changing for me.
What circumstances led you to drink and drive in the past in 2012?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question completely.
Ask it again. What circumstances led you to drink and drive in the past in 2012?
It was just a poor decision.
And what do you do to cope with stress?
I've recently, within the last 2 years, have been on an exercise regimen.
Okay. What is that exercise regimen?
It's a boot camp called the Camp Transformation Center, and I go 6 times a week.
And you said that you haven't had a drink since 2012. Has it been difficult for you to completely abstain from alcohol since that time?
I'm sorry, can I just correct that? It's been since I finished all my DUI stuff, so roughly it's been since probably 2013.
Okay.
What was the rest of your question?
Sure. So my question was, has it been difficult for you to completely abstain from alcohol since your last drink, which was sometime in 2013?
No, because I wasn't an alcoholic. I just drank socially.
And what does that mean to you to drink socially?
If I'm at a function, at a barbecue, or at a wedding, have a couple drinks.
Okay. Have you been to barbecues and weddings since your DUI in 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you drank at those barbecues or weddings?
No, ma'am.
Do you find it difficult to abstain from drinking at functions like barbecues or weddings where you're used to drinking prior to your DUI?
Not anymore. I've just been accustomed to the lifestyle of not drinking.
Okay. Now, you signed a stipulation as part of receiving your probationary RBT registration, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you signed that document stating that you would completely abstain from using alcohol, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And you also agreed that you would submit to drug testing.
Yes, ma'am.
And you agreed that you would submit to drug testing at your cost.
Yes, ma'am.
The stipulation that you signed also stated that testing was mandatory for a minimum of 6 months.
Yes, ma'am.
And the stipulation that you signed also stated that after 6 months, the board, at its discretion, may suspend or reduce the frequency of testing, but only if all tests have been negative for prohibited substances, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, on February 23rd, 2019, you provided a urine sample and it tested positive for alcohol metabolites, ethyl glucuronide and ethyl sulfate. Is that correct?
That's what the paperwork says, yes.
And what is your response to that positive for alcohol?
I'm sorry, what's your question again?
I said, what is your response to that positive for alcohol?
I can't explain the results, why they became, or why it presented positive, There's nothing different that I've been doing that would provide a randomly positive test.
You indicated in a letter to your probation monitor about cold medicine that week. Is that still your position, that you took cold medicine the week leading up to your test?
That's the only thing that I could think that was different during this last 16 months of probation and testing for the board.
Okay. What did you take that week?
I was taking the Alka-Seltzer Plus and NyQuil and DayQuil.
How much NyQuil and DayQuil were you taking?
I was using the recommended amount in the morning and recommended amount in the night.
And how long were you taking the NyQuil and the DayQuil?
Roughly maybe 5 days.
Did you have a discussion with your probation monitor about not taking cold medicine while on probation?
No, ma'am.
You didn't tell your probation monitor about taking the cold medicine until after you heard about the positive test for alcohol metabolites?
Well, that's when we were in contact, yes.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
I said you didn't tell the probation monitor about taking cold medicine until you were informed of the positive test for alcohol metabolites.
Yeah, that's when she reached out to me, or I received the letter, and then I was explaining to her, I don't know how that could have happened because I haven't done anything different.
You have her contact information prior to her letting you know about the positive test, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So you could have told her about taking cold medicine that week, correct?
Yeah, I didn't think that was part of my probation to report that, though.
Did you read the labels of the NyQuil and the DayQuil?
No.
Besides the week leading up to February 23rd, 2019, have you been sick at all over the past 16 months?
Not that I can remember, no. Actually, correction, yes, I had the stomach flu and I called out from work one time.
Okay.
You had the stomach flu and you did what?
I called out from work one time, yes. Within the last 16 months.
Do you remember taking medication when you had the stomach flu?
Not that I can remember.
Do you remember approximately when that was that you had the flu?
Honestly, no.
But sometime within the past 16 months, you believe?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you took this particular drug test on a Saturday evening, correct?
Yes, ma'am. When I check in every morning when I wake up, and then I had to go to work, and I took it after work.
Angela Toth, who wrote one of your recommendation letters, this is AGO-012, did you tell her of your probationary status?
Yeah, all of my management is aware of my probation.
Okay. And did you tell her why you're on probation?
Yes, my medical director, my hospital manager, and my tech supervisor are aware that I am on probation for the DUI from 2012.
Does that also include Dr. Kessler?
Yes, Dr. Kessler and Dr. Cervantes are all aware.
Why did you miss a call on December 9th, 2017?
I don't ever remember actually missing a call. I saw that today when you gave me the packet, and I don't ever remember. I've been very diligent in checking in every morning.
Now, you said in your letter in here today that if you're not granted early termination of probation, then you're requesting lower probation fees. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question.
My question was that she said in her letter, if you're not granted early termination of probation, then she is requesting lower probation fees.
Thank you.
Yes, it's the monthly fees and the drug testing costs that has really created a hardship for me.
If the board agreed to decrease your fees, couldn't you use that cost savings and apply it towards the drug testing costs for the remainder of your probation?
Yes, ma'am.
Why do you believe that the board should terminate your probation early when you've provided a positive test for alcohol?
Well, what I find funny is that I petitioned with you guys, and then the following, I believe it was like the following week or two, I received that I got a positive test, which to me doesn't make sense. There's no way that you guys have granted me to come here today and then I would sabotage myself and consume alcohol risks and have the risk of having to test. So I ask that you guys grant me this termination. I've done everything that the board has asked of me in spite of the paperwork that says I have a positive test, like I said, I've paid all my probation fees on time, if not early. I'm always submitting my monthly records. Dr. Johnson signs them, and I've always gotten a positive review from them.
Are you aware that the test markers for ethyl glucuronide and ethyl sulfate are used to determine whether you drank a few days prior to taking the test? But you're telling us you didn't drink anything at all.
Yes, ma'am, I'm telling you that.
Do you have any other criminal convictions that the board is not aware of besides the 2012 DUI conviction?
No, ma'am, when I applied for my license, I notated everything that I've ever been, had misdemeanors or felonies for.
And have you been arrested since filing your petition for modification or termination?
No, ma'am.
And do you have any pending criminal litigation against you right now?
No, ma'am.
Okay, I have nothing further.
Thank you. We'll begin with questions. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
So going back to 2017 when you were first given your probationary license, can you walk us through the procedure of how you're given the terms of your probation? Because you don't have representation today. I'm assuming you didn't have legal representation at that time.
No, I didn't.
Okay, so can you tell us how you were given the terms, how you knew what you were supposed to do?
I applied for my license. I submitted the information about my DUI. The board then sent me, which I don't think I have it, but I did submit it. The board then sent me my probation stipulations and basically gave me the opportunity and said, we can give you your license. At least this is how I interpreted it, that they could give me my license under these circumstances for the next 2 years, or I could appeal, at least I believe that's what it was, or I could appeal and go to Sacramento or go in front of the board and petition for that. Being that I was just out of school, out of college, got my license, eager to be in the industry, I just agreed to the terms, knowing that I'm not an alcoholic. It's not something, I don't suffer from alcoholism or addiction. So I agreed to the terms. To be honest, I kind of felt like I was put in a corner. I just got a degree. I was eager to be I'm passionate about veterinary medicine. So being eager with options to have my license, I just signed the paperwork and was okay with it. And knowing that within 2 years, I know I wasn't going to drink or do drugs. That's not who I am. But now it's becoming very costly for me.
Okay, and because we don't have anybody here to explain to us about the drug testing, can you tell us what that involves? You call on a daily basis?
So First Source has either I can call or I have an app on my phone. I have an app on my phone. Every morning I wake up, I log in, and it'll tell me you have to test today or you don't have to test today. If it comes up red, I have to test. Most of the time I work normally 7 to 4, in the 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., so I try to test after work. And it's a 24-hour facility. Actually, it closes at 10.
Okay, is your employer accommodating if you have to leave work to go test, or are you able to do that before or after?
Yeah, majority of the time I do it after work because I'm off at 4 p.m. But they would be accommodating if I needed to.
Okay, and then my last question is, again, it's just because we don't have anybody here to talk to us about the testing. Do they give you a list of things that you're not allowed to take or that you are?
I want to say originally when I first signed up with LabSource, or maybe it was through the board, they gave me, it might even be in my packet of like things that I can't eat or I should stay away from eating or using like hand sanitizer, stuff like that.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning.
So you received a list either from LabSource or from the board of a list of things that you could not eat or use?
I want to say yes, or maybe it was at the place that I test at, which is in Ontario, I believe.
Thank you.
And I apologize, Your Honor, I had one more question.
Sure.
Could you tell us, I don't want to pry too much, but what percentage of your income is being spent on this testing and probation costs?
Percent-wise, I couldn't tell you, but I could tell you that it's roughly probably about $350 a month.
Thank you.
Is that for the testing and the probation cost or just the testing?
The testing and the probation.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for coming. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Do you recall, just because I was thinking about this earlier, you don't recall in your original notification, either from the lab source or from the board, on things to avoid, whether Dayquil or NyQuil were on, and those kinds of cold medications were on that list?
Honestly, I haven't looked at that since 16 months, so since November 2017. It very well could have been on there, and I just didn't think to look at it.
It's probably important to know what things can trigger. I have a question for you on, real quick. You're not, it doesn't sound like, but just to check, I didn't see any records here. Are you attending AA meetings or any kind of therapy sessions?
No, ma'am. Like I said, I'm not an alcoholic. In 2012, I was hanging out with some friends, had a couple of drinks, and I drove. Actually, I made a wrong turn, and that's how they pulled me over. But in 2012, once the court mandated me to do meetings, or it was like a DUI class, I completed that and paid all my restitution fees to the court.
And you have your license now?
Driver's license?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I've had that. Even during my DUI situation, I had a restricted license it was my first time, it was a first offense, so I had a license to go to work and back.
Okay. Let me ask you, let's see here. What do you, I know you're a social drinker and things like that, but there's going to be tons of opportunities. Do you find any coping mechanisms when you're at a party or whatever to, obviously your license is important to you and you know the ramifications for driving under the influence, but do you ever anticipate taking a drink at a party or social situation?
I have no desire to drink, not only because the situation that I dealt with in 2012, but the situation that I'm dealing with now. And I'm, like I said, I'm in a process of becoming healthier with my lifestyle, and drinking isn't conducive to working out and eating healthy.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for right now.
I just have one question. Why do you think we put people on probation in the first place?
Because our job is very serious and we work around controlled substances.
Okay.
And thank you for coming today. I just want to make it crystal clear. You're saying that you had no alcohol to drink during your probationary period. At this point, you have not had any alcohol.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Have you ever ingested alcohol or any drugs prior to or during work, whether it was as an RVT or a veterinary assistant or prior to that?
No, ma'am, never.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think my questions have been asked, so leave it to Dr. Bradbury.
Hi, thank you for coming today. I'm just wondering, what was your blood alcohol level in your DUI?
Honestly, I can't remember. Yes, ma'am, I failed the field exam.
How many drinks did you have that day?
Probably about 6.
And you chose to drive?
Yeah, it was a poor decision.
Okay. Thank you.
I don't have any questions.
Any other questions? There are no responses to any other questions, so the board members do not have any other questions at this time. Is there anything else you would like to add?
No, I've said everything. I just hope that you guys could think about considering me for the termination of probation. I do feel that this mistake I made was in 2012, long before I even applied for my RVT license. So maybe that could be taken into consideration as well. And my record shows that since 2012 until now, I have had a clean record.
Could I just want to clarify, I think it's in here, the normal termination for probation would be November of 19, is that correct, based on, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. You indicated you may have a witness.
I'm not going to call her at this time.
Okay. And do we have all the exhibits that are part of the packet? Is there anything else?
You do.
Yeah, I didn't bring anything extra.
Okay. Okay. Would you like to make a closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor. The people here have concerns about terminating or modifying the petitioner's probationary status at this time, although we recognize that the petitioner has provided approximately 24 clean drug tests and is in compliance with most of her probationary conditions. The probation report, as detailed in Exhibit 8, which was admitted, talks about how she provided a positive drug test for alcohol biomarkers in February. That means that she is not in compliance with her probation, and that is what our main concern is. As part of receiving her RVT registration, she agreed to submit to drug testing. She agreed to pay for the costs associated with the drug testing and agreed to completely abstain from alcohol and drug use. She was placed on probation for a reason, and that was due to her conviction involving alcohol. And we heard that she testified that she had approximately 6 drinks. So if you do the math, her BAC was quite high at the time that she chose to get into the car and drive. The positive test result reflects that she has not abstained from alcohol use and therefore is not in compliance with probation. The stipulation states that the board may suspend or reduce the frequency of drug testing if all tests have been negative for prohibited substances, and here they have not. The people do recognize the financial burden associated with Ms. Jones and the drug testing, and if the board wishes to modify the petitioner's probation, the people would encourage the board to consider reducing the probation costs, but keeping Ms. Jones on probation in order to allow her to continue with drug testing until she gets potentially off of probation in November 2019. Thank you.
I have one question before final. You indicated that you had received a list of things that you could not eat or use, such as hand sanitizer. And you said you have not looked at that since 2017. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a reason why you have not looked at that?
If it was from the board in my packet, my petition, or my probation stipulations, I have that in a drawer with all my paperwork.
Thank you.
I would also like to add that after the test that they're claiming it came back positive, I believe a few days later they asked me to take another test and then submit a blood test, which cost me another $150, and both of those tests came back negative.
Thank you.
I have a question.
All right.
I would object to that statement. If we're talking about not allowing in the drug test results as direct evidence and solely as administrative hearsay, then there's no basis for the petitioner's statements about later drug tests. If the court wishes to admit the drug test results as direct evidence, then I don't have a problem with the petitioner's statement about the later drug tests.
Would you like to respond to that?
No, it's okay.
Do you understand what she just said?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Excuse me just
okay.
So it's your position that you were required to, you're stating under oath that you were required to take 2 other tests within a couple of days after that test came back positive.
Yes, ma'am. I want to say one was the following Saturday, and then one was a following Thursday, which was the blood test.
So then you admit that that was a positive test.
No, what I'm saying is that there's no reason for it to be positive when the following test was a negative and the blood test was a negative.
Okay. Do you want to respond to that?
Your Honor, I would just renew my objection that it's based on hearsay. So if the court is going to be relying on the petitioner's statements as direct evidence, then I would ask that the court admits Exhibits 5 and 7 as not as administrative hearsay, but as direct evidence.
Granted.
Thank you.
Question?
Do you know, did they tell you how long, or does, I don't know, maybe you know from the testing, how long alcohol stays in your system? And then my other question is, so you hit that positive and then they did 2 tests immediately after. Was that because of the positive, or were those just the regular schedule of your tests?
So to your first question, no, I don't know. You're asking me if I know how long alcohol stays in my system, right?
Yeah.
No, I do not know.
Okay.
And then the second question, it could have very well been just my random selection, but the blood test I'm going to say is probably because I've never had to submit a blood test before.
So it had always been urine.
Yes, ma'am.
And then you hit a positive, and then they suddenly wanted blood.
Yes, ma'am.
And
At least that's the only
okay.
reason I could think of.
Are the test results of the blood test in here in this packet? In Exhibit 8 or which one was it?
Yes, they're in, just for reference, it's Exhibit
7?
7 and it's AGO-043.
Do you know which
the
one is?
subsequent drug test is what she's asking about.
Yeah, the blood test. Does it indicate which one is blood?
Yes, well, special March 7th, 2019. And Your Honor, I do have some follow-up questions for petitioner now that this exhibit has been admitted.
I'm sorry.
I do have some follow-up questions for petitioner now that this exhibit has been admitted.
I'm really confused.
Okay.
Because I think what she's asking is if there's information about the blood test.
Yeah, 3/7/2019 on AGO 043.
Oh, it's 4-3.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And do you know from the drug testing company anything about why they went from blood or urine to blood? Did they notify you as to why they did that, or?
I think you need to ask the witness.
Oh, so they didn't tell you anything about why they went from blood to urine?
No, it just said that I had a special. The morning of it said you have a special test. Call this number. So I called, which is the lab source, and they said, "Oh, we sent a box to a testing place, which is not the normal place I go to, but it's one close to my house. You need to go there for a blood test." So that's what I did.
Is the blood test more accurate than a urine test in terms of detecting alcohol?
If you know.
I don't know.
Do you know?
I don't think I can testify
Right,
to.
she can't
Okay, she
testify
can't.
to the case. Correct.
What about the vets on board? Do you guys know? I mean, they're doctors.
No, this isn't the time for us to have that discussion.
And did you ever have to do blood again?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, so I have a question.
I do too.
No, I have to give the people over.
And
then I'll come
your
back to you.
DUI was in 2012?
Yes, ma'am.
When did you graduate from veterinary technician school?
I graduated from Mount San Antonio College in 2015, I believe.
And how long was your program?
A 2-year program.
Okay. And so you've only had one DUI. You were still allowed to drive after the DUI, just to and from work.
Yes, ma'am.
And why were you allowed to still drive to and from work after you got that DUI? Was it because it was a first time offense, or
I believe it was for a first.
If you know.
if you know?
I believe it was for the first time offenders. I believe that they can have only to work and back.
Your Honor, I'd
Okay.
object as to speculation and lack of personal
I asked if
knowledge.
she knew, and that's her testimony.
I'd
So-
object as to speculation. I renew my objections as to speculation.
Okay, overruled. I asked her if she knew, so she's testifying under oath, so I trust that she heard me when I said if you know. Overruled.
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I might have questions later, but I don't have any more right now.
Question.
Yes, so just to be clear, the positive test result on February 23rd is no longer hearsay, and it's admitted as
Direct evidence,
direct
correct.
evidence. And then, as I understand it, the following Saturday, there was another urine test, which tested negative. But I also acknowledge that I don't know how long a urine sample will stay positive after a drink. And then the following Thursday, there was a blood test, which was negative. And I still don't have any idea how long a test will stay positive after a drink. So the fact that those two were negative or positive doesn't provide me information on whether or not there was a drink that we're now taking as direct evidence from the February 23rd testing.
Okay, do you have any questions for her? Okay.
Yeah, and I just wanted to, again, on the secondary, well, the last two blood tests, it does look like there was, just to clarify, I want to make sure I'm reading right, it was a week after the first one, and then another almost 2 weeks after the first one, where those two additional tests were done. Right. That according to the dates here, 223, 312, 32, and 307.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I got another question.
Excuse me,
Oh,
no,
sorry.
there's one more.
Yeah.
No questions. Thank you.
You said you got the document that said what to kind of refrain from hand sanitizer foods. Why did you not go over that thoroughly and like memorize it if your license was important to you?
At the time, and when I did receive it in 2017, when I signed for the petition or for the stipulations, I did go over it. Keep in mind, it's been 16 months. I've done everything that they've asked of me. I was getting sick. I took medication, not thinking that it's going to create a positive test.
Okay. Have you looked at did you look at the form, that document after you got the positive? Were you like, oh my God, or did you just still not review it again?
No, actually, I didn't review it. I was just like racking my brain, like what have I done different?
Wouldn't that form have indicated if you couldn't take cold medicine? I mean, why didn't you like verify? Yeah, it was in fact the cold medicine. Like, why didn't you check the pamphlet?
I think I was more worried about the fact that I had just recently got the notification that I could meet with you guys, and now I'm thinking my opportunity was going to be sabotaged, which I did express that with Miss Sydney.
Okay. All right. No more questions.
We'll see if this stays on. How much was it for your schooling?
At Mount Sac, I paid per semester, and I received my associates in science. So tuition-wise, I couldn't give you like a number. I did get financial aid as well.
And so do you have loans every month you still are paying back on?
I do have a loan for $5,000. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And then what were you doing prior to going to school to be an RVT?
I was working also at a shelter in Pomona, and I had two jobs actually. I was a security guard and working at a shelter in Pomona and bathing as well, bathing dogs.
Thank you.
I have a few more questions. Ms. Jones, after you were arrested for your DUI, your license was suspended afterwards, correct?
My driver's license?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
And you went through the DMV to get your license back as a restricted license.
Yes, ma'am.
How long did that take you approximately?
I believe about 3 months.
And turning your attention to Exhibit 5, AGO-038. The document states that the cutoff value for ethyl glucuronide is 250 nanograms per milliliter, whereas the value was 1,839, which is more than 6 times the limit of the cutoff value. And looking at this, do you still maintain that you didn't drink any alcohol before your February 23rd, 2009 test?
Yes, ma'am.
I have nothing further.
I'm sorry, I don't see where you read.
I'm looking at the center of the document. Ethyl glucuronide is on the left side, about midway down below ecstasy analogs. And if you go right, it says positive test result, and then it lists a value of 1,839, and then a cutoff value of 250.
Thank you. Thank you. Since you've already given a closing argument or statement, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Would you like to make a closing statement?
Yeah, I do want to ask or mention that I'm here for my termination, and granted, I know that the main focus has been about my DUI and this positive test, and nobody has taken the time to look at my letters of recommendations or the CEs that I have completed and taken a positive turn for this. I feel like you guys have just focused this whole time on a DUI that I received in 2012 instead of looking at as well as my letters of recommendations from doctors I work with and my hospital manager and my tech supervisor, which all have given me nothing but positive reviews.
Thank you. The matter is deemed submitted as of today's date, and we'll go off the record. When we go off the record, could you explain to the petitioner what the procedure is?
Sure, Your Honor.
Off the record.
Thank you.
Let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back. Yeah, well, yeah, but you have to say it. Don't I say it then? Okay, we are going to go ahead and reopen our session of the Veterinary Medical Board and then subsequently close it for deliberation. Thank you. Call this session of the Veterinary Medical Board. I'd like to open it to the general public. Do we need a roll call? Okay, so we're going to move on to item number 10 on our agenda. Okay, I'll turn it over to the EO.
I'll turn it over to Tara. Okay, so 10A is just the update on where each regulation rulemaking package is in the process. We've made some significant progress the past 3 months, so thank you to Amanda.
And to Tara.
10B. Here is, I'm bringing this back before you for review. I think it was January 2017, the board took a look at DVM graduates. The situation was that if you graduated from a veterinary college but never passed the veterinarian exams and never got licensed as a veterinarian, regulation authorized you to work as an RVT without ever getting registered as an RVT. So last year there was legislation to close that loophole. So now we need to come back and take a look at the regulations that the board previously looked at and I think approved. So what I'd like to do is, I'm pretty much just bringing this to your attention. I think it's on page 3. It should be a page of California Code of Regulations, beginning with section 2027. What I'm going to bring back to you in July will be strike through of graduates and in the title. Okay. And strike through on that first line, it says a junior or senior student, strike or a graduate of a recognized veterinary college who is performing any animal healthcare task may perform only the identical job task with the identical degree of supervision appropriate for an RVT under 2036. I was paraphrasing that. All I want to do is strike the mentions of graduate in that regulation. However, the board also took a look at the next page. It should say at the top, previously proposed language. I just went over potential changes to CCR section 2027. There was a new regulation proposed for 2027.5, which would have spoken to the gap. It would have said, as of a certain date, if you graduated from a veterinarian college, you would have to stop practicing as an RVT unless you took the exams. That has already been addressed in statute now. So what I think we need to do is take a look at whether or not we need to provide for a veterinarian student who never takes the veterinarian exams and instead wants to take the RVT exams and just get registered as an RVT. That's really the only thing we need to address. So what I'd like to do is just bring this back before the board for further discussion.
Isn't it already addressed though? If they've completed the DVM curriculum, they have 8 months to apply for the RVT exam? Or
you're talking about somebody who drops out of veterinary school?
Or completes veterinary school.
I'm talking about a veterinarian student who just wants to change and become an RVT. Because if you're a graduate, a DVM grad now, you have 2 options. Either take your vet exams or get registered as an RVT and follow those statutes.
So this is a second option.
A second option is you started veterinary in school, realized it was too much for whatever reason, and you decide to pivot and just become an RVT. We don't currently have a real defined process for that to determine how much of that veterinarian education is sufficient to qualify to take the RVT exams.
and currently, if you're in your junior year,
If you completed 2 years.
if you completed 2 years, you can perform the task of an RVT.
Yes.
So that by extrapolation, if you've completed 2 years of
You could take the
veterinary school,
test.
you could apply for the RVT test.
Right, so if you look at proposed 2027.5, here it would say that a person who receives the degree or is within 8 months of anticipated graduation, you're already a senior by that point, then you can apply for and take the RVT exams. And my question is, why can't you do that once you complete your sophomore year?
So you would keep the first part, any person who receives the veterinary medical degree, or a person who has completed 2 years.
Okay, 4-year program. So what if it's a 5-year program? We have AVMA accredited 5-year program. We need to make sure we address the 5-year programs that are AVMA accredited.
Right, so I think it just deserves a little bit more conversation about how much education the veterinarian students are receiving when, and especially if there's a difference between a 4-year and a 5-year, and when that person might be eligible to get registered by taking the exams for RVT registration.
Now, I know there's 2-year and 3-year RVT programs, but I haven't heard of 4-year DVM programs. I
What?
haven't heard of a 5-year DVM program.
Yeah, the Royal Veterinary College, the Royal Dick Veterinary, the ones in the UK are all AVMA accredited 5-year programs. And Edinburgh is, yeah.
So they come out of high school straight into a.
They come out of a 4-year undergraduate and go into a 5-year program, some of them. But what you could do, let me just follow my train of thought, is it says, or a person who is within 8 months of his or her anticipated graduation from an accredited veterinary college. You could say within 2 years. And then that would be 3 years if you're in a 5-year program and 2 years if you're in a 4-year program.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make that change to this language. We do not need subsections B or C anymore because those are now provided for in statute. So I'd like to bring this back at the next meeting for your consideration and further discussion.
And are you going to remove the California Veterinary Technician examination from that wording?
I am not yet, because there may come a time that the California Veterinarian Technician examination is necessary. Today, it sounds like we're just going to rely on the national exam, but every other RVT regulation and statute provides for
because
both.
so it says shall be eligible means if you have to take it, you're eligible to take it, but you may not have to. I understand.
Right. So at this time, no vote is necessary. Just wanted to give you an update on that.
Yes, a quick process question on this. Once this does get adopted, what would be the process to notify, or what is the process now to notify graduates that have been practicing as an RVT that now there's a year limitation? And is there any way to even determine who those folks are?
There's a number of ways that these are public, but I think after you're asking about once it's effective, right? Once it's effective, how do we get the word out? Or because you have public comment process during the rulemaking phase, but I think it's more of once these are effective, how do you get the word out to those applicants that they can do that, the students? And I think we can do that through outreach to those schools and colleges to let them know that this is now a pathway. And then if those students, if we have their contact information via email, we can send that to them as well.
Because what essentially would happen is that they suddenly are doing unlicensed activity.
There is a delayed implementation of that statute to provide sufficient time for individuals who find themselves in this circumstance, the DMV grads who are doing work as RVTs, to either take the vet exam or the RVT complete that registration process.
And we would have no way of knowing who they are. The only way to find out is through a complaint.
Or we could, one other possibility, outreach is notify all veterinary employers that if they have someone in their employ in that circumstance that they should let them know they have to take the test.
So Tara, do you need to move on to C, or are we going to table that?
No, we shouldn't table that, but I'm going to turn it over to Amanda to go over the comments that we've received regarding that regulation.
So the CPI regulatory package was submitted to OAL for notice on March 8th, and the 45-day comment period is currently still open from March 8th, and it'll remain open until April 22nd. To date, we've only received one comment, which I have included with the memo I drafted. What will happen following the 45-day comment period, I'll draft a final statement of reasons and submit the packet back through DCA for their review, and then it'll be submitted to OAL for their final review and hopefully approval. So the summary of the comment, it was essentially that there's a lack of resources for doctors who need mental health support, and the loss of licensure often correlates with the loss of income and health insurance, which makes obtaining help difficult. And additionally, finding therapists and other medical providers who can understand and treat the specific issues that veterinarians face is a challenge. And the comment was a suggestion that the board include provisions to provide assistance to doctors who are cited. the recommended response drafted is that the proposed language would adopt CCR section 2017 to authorize the board to require a licensed applicant to be examined by one or more physicians and surgeons or psychologists designated by the board if it reasonably appears that the applicant may be unable to practice veterinary medicine safely due to mental or physical illness affecting competency. This proposal is based on the board's existing authority to require a licensee to submit for a mental or physical examination pursuant to Business and Professions Code Section 820 and 883. The proposed regulation provides that the board shall pay the full cost of the examination. However, the board does not have statutory authority or the funds to provide mental and physical health support for licensees or applicants at the board expense. Accordingly, the board is unable to resolve this concern as is outside the scope of the board's authority. So what I'm asking the board to do is to look and determine if they think that's an acceptable response to address the comment in the final statement of reasons, and if not, where to go from there.
Comments, Dr. Nunez?
I mean, I think her concerns are very valid because it definitely is a tough job that we have to do, but it is beyond our scope to provide the counseling that she's requesting.
Dr. Bradbury?
I agree with that statement. I don't know if it would be helpful to remind the person writing that our job is to protect the consumers, and that's like what I feel charged to do, and so I don't know how to word that nicely, but
You could say something like, we understand the concerns listed in the comment. However, our mandate is consumer protection and our budget and everything is limited to that, or something like that. Just so we do show that we do understand what this person, what she's saying. Is that very true?
And there's other resources through AVMA and CVMA that offer wellness services that definitely would be good to know that help is out there.
Mm-hmm.
So just a reminder that this response is going to be included in the rulemaking package. We're not actually sending a separate letter, right, to the member of the public who wrote in.
Any other comments?
so we don't need to necessarily explain to her what our
Right. I
mandate
think
is.
what we need to do is just make sure that we have properly responded to the concern raised. I think that we could just include 2 sentences about, the board recognizes that this is a serious concern. And I'm just not exactly sure how we would refer anyone to AVMA or other resources, because this isn't a matter of referring anyone somewhere like, oh, you could go over there, but perhaps we could make a statement that although the board doesn't have authority to provide mental health services or those types of resources, resources are available and through other associations.
Resources are available through professional associations and not mention CVMA or AVMA?
Yes.
Okay, any other comments?
So we do need an official board motion to accept those comments as amended.
I would so move.
Okay, call the roll.
Ms. Bowler?
Yes.
Dr. Bradbury?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Yes.
Dr. Nunez?
Yes.
Dr. Waterhouse?
Yes.
Ms. Yanas?
Yes.
Dr. Nolan?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay. Moving on to item 11 on the agenda.
I feel so bad that it's so late in the afternoon.
I'm
because
sorry, I
prepared
do apologize.
A 52-page document to present to you,
And I summarized it in 4 pages.
but I'll try to whittle it down.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find what I did with that.
This isn't too terribly challenging, but this started way back in April of 2011. SB 1441, Ridley Thomas, created the Substance Abuse Coordination Committee, made up of the executive officers of all the healing art boards. And it was established to address inconsistencies and non-existing standards for discipline of substance abusing licensees and to better protect patients and consumers from these licensees. This committee developed 16 standards, which was not included in your package, but there's a hyperlink to it if you'd like to see them. And then the healing art boards were advised to promulgate regulation to enact these uniform standards. To help us do so, the DCA drafted 3 options to revise our disciplinary guidelines to add these uniform standards. And with the caveat that we can't change these uniform standards, but we had the discretion to determine when these guidelines may be triggered. And that took us to the April 2014 meetings, where the first thing that we did was to choose option 3 of the 3 options that were given to us. The first option was saying that if the conduct found to be in violation, involved drugs or alcohol, the licensee would be presumed to be a substance abusing licensee and be subject to the uniform standards. So no matter what, if there was drugs or alcohol in the accusations, you were assumed to be an abuser and all these standards would apply. We thought that was too encompassing. If you had like a DUI 20 years ago, then you shouldn't have to have all these things be triggered. The second option was that a clinical diagnostic evaluation needs to be ordered to determine whether or not the licensee was a substance abusing licensee. We thought that was a bit too much in time and money. And option 3 gave, if after notice and a hearing, the individual was found to be, by the board, to be a substance abusing licensee, then the standards would apply. That's the option we chose. So that means that when a respondent comes before a judge, if that judge says that you are a substance abusing licensee, the standards apply. Or if that respondent comes before board staff to sort of hash out a stipulated settlement, if the board finds that you're a substance abusing licensee, then these standards apply. The other thing we did in the April and October meeting was to kind of pull it a little bit out of our disciplinary guidelines and replace the term supervisor with drug site monitor, because we felt that supervisor applied more towards those licensees that were being disciplined for medical causes versus a separate set of licensees that were being disciplined for substance abuse causes. So the ones for substance abuse causes had drug worksite monitors. And then there was a decision from DCA Legal saying that they needed to put the brakes on this, and there was a 2-year hiatus of it, and then it was allowed to go back again. And that's kind of where we are right now. And since the lapse of time, we were asked to reevaluate what we've done in the past, which Kathy and I did, and we still thought that option 3 was still the best option. So this subcommittee is recommending that we stick with option 3. But then the other thing that we did back in 2014 was, once the trigger was made to include uniform standards, we had included all of the uniform standards.
And that's in the draft September 2014 text that we have. I think it's, that's in the draft September 2014 language that's included here.
So In that regards, we felt that it removes flexibility of the board. If the trigger has been set, we didn't feel that it was necessarily that all of these standards be included in a disciplinary order. So it's similar to when we put a person on probation. We have standard terms and then option terms, or optional terms. So we wanted the discipline for substance abusing to be like that. The 3 that we felt should be standard to be included in all were actually the ones that were required. We didn't really have a choice in it. And that's notification to employer, drug and alcohol testing, and abstain from alcohol, controlled substance, and dangerous drugs. We do know that drug and alcohol testing can be really cumbersome to a licensee. And to that point, the committee, the Substance Abuse Committee, recently had a meeting that was going to allow more flexibility to how frequent a person needed to be tested. So those have the option of being less stringent in the future, if it's appropriate, which I think is a good thing. And then the optional term would be work site monitor, facilitated group support meetings, clinical diagnostic evaluation, and drug and alcohol abuse treatment programs. And that's what we would like to submit forward through the whole rulemaking process. I hope that made sense. I tried to go fast.
I do have a question of the committee. You just mentioned it in your last closing statement that there has been a revisitation of flexibility in the drug and alcohol monitoring. Do you know where we are with that? Have they finished that?
You had said that there was...
Yeah, so the committee which I serve on, we were mandated by statute to reevaluate specifically Uniform Standard 4, and that deals in the frequency of the testing. So there are 2 revisions that we had recommended move forward. Number 1, it was to be able to reduce the testing in half if they were supervised 50% of the time. The thought being they have a supervisor there providing that direct supervision 50% of the time, and that is another tool that we can use to make sure that there aren't substance abuse issues happening. And so with that, we reduced that, the frequency. And the other one was to allow more flexibility when they go on vacation out of country, because what was happening is a lot of licensees on probation would have family members that were out of country, family members would pass away, and they were unable to go and attend funerals. And so there's other mechanisms out there through various forms of drug testing that's not just urine testing that we can do, so hair or blood testing. And so this flexibility would allow them to still travel, but then enable us to use the other mechanisms once they return. So those were the 2 related to the Uniform Standards 4. But with that said, during this discussion with all the healing arts EOs, is that while the statute required us to review only Uniform Standard 4, we requested to review all of them. And so we will be doing that in subsequent meetings.
And is there a time frame on that?
Not yet. There's a couple things that we have asked DCA that we're kind of waiting on. Number 1, I had a large concern that we weren't comparing apples to apples when we were talking about who's doing what, because some boards, depending on what their triggers were, for example, if one board defined a substance abusing licensee to mean everybody, you had the presumption language that everybody on probation for substance use is an abuser. It's such a wider net versus someone who has a clinical diagnostic evaluation or through an ALJ. And so those might have real issues, and the other one, you have the potential to not. And so we need to know exactly what the boards are talking about before we decide how to implement. We also wanted to know who which boards have not implemented the uniform standards, because it makes it difficult for us to all come to consensus when we're all varied. So we're waiting on that research, but I do anticipate us starting up in meetings shortly.
There was a mention in one memo that Standard 4 was probably the most difficult, and they didn't expect the rest of the standards to take as long.
Yes.
I think you had mentioned by 2020 it should be done. I think.
It will be.
It won't.
It will be.
It will.
Yeah.
So the board would like to thank the two members of that subcommittee for doing all that work and for the report. Thank you very much.
So the next steps for this, because the adopted language by the board was not conducive to a probation condition for an ALJ or staff to use, essentially copy and paste, I'm going to take the recommendations and formulate it to how it would look for model conditions to make sure that there's no confusion of how to implement these conditions. And then we can bring that to July. Yes.
I think in the interest of time, we are going to go ahead and postpone or eliminate or produce in writing 13, 14, and 15 and 16. 16, that information has been provided to the public in handouts and or online. And so any questions on items 13 through 16 could be directed to the Veterinary Medical Board via the executive officer or to the executive officer. So we're now on number 17. I do have a comment on future agenda items and next meeting dates. It's been brought to my attention, and I don't know if anyone else has talked to anyone, that some of the association constituents that come to our meetings are having a hard time with the Bay Area location. You want to discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, so it's been brought to my attention that hotel rooms close to Foothill College are around $300 to $400 a night, which I did not know. But we are working with Foothill College to see if they have any recommendations. And Stuart Ekman from the MDC is also assisting in trying to find state rates and reasonable meeting hotel locations. We might have to travel a little farther. But we are researching that right now because it's important for us to be able to get those hotel rooms as soon as possible.
Would, since this is for the July meeting, are you considering, if you can't find something soon, just moving to SAC again?
We may do that.
Pardon?
We can do that. If that could be our plan B if we're unable to afford the hotel rooms.
Thank you.
So should we have a discussion on the future agenda items?
I have a question on the retention schedule. Do we need a decision on this, or is this just information for us?
So I actually, while it's not required for you guys to approve it, I would like you guys to discuss it and approve it, because I'm going to propose some significantly different retention of the documents. But also, because the changes that I'm going to propose are so different, I think for transparency, it's good to explain it to the public as well of what this retention schedule means to them. But since we have no public members today, I think we should hold off until July.
Okay.
Were there any agenda items we discussed yesterday that we need to move to the agenda for July?
We did. One thing we did discuss today was possibly asking the staff at some point in the future meetings to schedule a meeting or a presentation by the Maximus or the blood source folks to explain the testing process.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, there's a couple. We had initially we anticipate that happening in October because they're in Sacramento. But if we do move it to July, we can do that as well. Another thing is we're going to do an overview of the complaint process and specific to the rehabilitation criteria and how we handle those types of complaints. And so we're going to bring our new DAG liaison, which I don't think I announced actually. We got a new DAG liaison, and she's based out of Sacramento. And so she will attend and help with that training, the overview of the complaint process. And I believe our prior DAG liaison, Diane Sokoloff, who has been with the board for 20 years, will come and say goodbye as well. Another thing that will have to be on the July agenda is my evaluation, because it'll be a year in July.
Yes.
Are there expert witness trainings this year? Is there one in the fall? Or?
Yeah, so there's a couple options right now. The medical board is putting on expert witness training. They do twice a year, once in Sacramento and once in Southern California. And lots of other healing arts boards that are smaller have been sending subject matter experts like us. We did that last year. And as soon as, it's my understanding still the dates haven't been posted yet, but as soon as they are, we send them to our subject matter experts. DCA is also looking at creating a subject matter expert training where the Solid, who puts on all of DCA's training, is going to look at implementing that. And there's a group within DCA's Future Leadership Development Program. They did all the research with that, and they involved the AG's office, and so we're developing it right now.
Because didn't the vet board have like 2 trainings in 2018, or maybe
No,
like
I
one
believe
in
it was in 2016.
October and 2 different ones, north and south.
Yeah, so the struggle with that though is, one, it's very, very time consuming, but it's also very costly to get the Attorney General and an ALJ there to do that training. And because our budget is not ideal, we're looking at other options to still provide quality training to our experts.
Yeah, because I was at one of those and it was quite good.
And I know it's late in the afternoon, but our package did include an augmentation to our budget because of out of control Attorney General fees, and that there was something in the enforcement report that talked about a change in strategy to try to. Would we like to mention a few words about that?
Go ahead.
I was hoping to hear a little bit from the enforcement report on how the change in strategy is going to help out with this, what always seems to be our biggest cost.
I think when it comes to the AG costs, just specifically, we are more aware of the cases that are being transmitted over to the AG's office. Just in general, we're looking at the cases that are there, figuring out if they actually do need to still be at the AG's office, whether or not it's something we need to actually take discipline on. There were, or there are a lot of pending cases that were done prior to both myself and Jessica coming on board, and we are looking at those to make sure that discipline against that licensee is appropriate. I think one of the biggest things that I've noticed with staff is that they are being very proactive, because I know one of the concerns was the cycle times with the AG's office. So there has been a significant increase in the conversation and the collaboration with the AG's office between staff and obviously the assigned DAG. And I think that is going to streamline things, but when it comes to the actual costs, the augmentation is really reflecting the fact that a lot of the cases that we have transmitted over to the AG's office are not cases that we're willing to settle on. So I think that was one of the main reasons why we had that augmentation where it is, because there are going to be a lot of hearings that are going to be occurring because of that. So we need to be prepared for that.
This new strategy that you're proposing, have you seen it work in other boards, or where did it come from?
Oh yeah, I mean at optometry we were very collaborative with the AG's office, and I know that our DAG liaison, one of the great things, and I think this is something that our new liaison is going to be proactive in, just in the few conversations I think that we've had with her. We used to have our DAG liaison come to our enforcement meetings on a monthly basis to give us opinions on cases that are actually going, that we're kind of determining whether or not they need to go to the AG's office. So that, I think, is going to, from the get-go, create a better expectation of the cases and what we should, how we should be pursuing them. So.
And I think somewhere in your report you mentioned that we're now number one as far as the amount of cases that each.
As far as the cycle times?
Yeah.
I don't know if we're number one. I think we're up there. We might be number two. But I know that we've had numerous conversations with the AG's office, and I know that Jessica has spoken with Linda Schneider, who's at the top, and that's why she did let us participate in the fast track program, which basically allows us to, or the AG's office, to handle the less complex, simultaneous to the more complex cases. So it allows us just better bandwidth there, so that will help our cycle times overall. But like I said, I think the biggest thing that's helping right now that I think will have long-lasting effects is the fact that the staff has really repositioned just their efforts with the AG's office in general. So they've been very proactive in reaching out, and I think we're creating good relationships with all the offices, or at least we're trying to. And then one of the other things that we are working on is if the DAG is making a recommendation, we're not automatically just taking it on faith. We are coming back with questions, and there's just a lot more back and forth. And I think that's always a good thing to have, because we need to consider what's best for consumer protection, and then obviously for the board. So.
And what about all these decisions that are coming back that just have mistakes in them?
So, there's a few different things that we're looking at doing, and one of them we actually just recently did. If we're getting decisions that have a lot of technical errors that we believe can be fixed, there's a process to follow to send it back to Office of Administrative Hearings and have the ALJ correct it. So we recently did that, and by doing that, we can have the issues corrected prior to them going to the board. And when we do that, it doesn't result in a non-adoption and an ordering of the transcripts, which is very, very costly. And so the idea is to be able to fix a lot of this stuff up front. However, that would not resolve the issues of ALJs finding violations that were not initially alleged. And that's a huge concern of mine, as is Tara's. And so I am gathering a lot of examples, and I will be meeting with most likely DCA Legal and the Attorney General's Office and OAH to resolve that issue.
We saw a lot of that today.
We've seen a lot in the last few months, but we haven't seen it much before. So
and because we are working on our oldest cases, and there's more pressure on the AG's office to close, there's more attention on them to close cases faster. I think that it may get worse before it gets better. I think that costs may go up before they go down. But to the specific question about what changes we've made that would have a direct reflect on the AG cost, some examples would be getting mitigation upfront from staff collecting that information. So if there was a DUI or something happened, our staff is now requesting mitigation, whereas before we were sending it to the Attorney General's office and asking them to provide, which is costly. So we're doing that up front. We're doing more of an analysis up front as well, as far as if discipline is warranted. And we're also, upon transmitting it to the AG's office, we've already done an analysis with using the disciplinary guidelines to see what we would be willing to settle for. And we're letting the Attorney General's office know right up front. And that reduces cycle times tremendously, because before we were just transmitting it to the AG's office, and then they would set a hearing, which could be 1 to 2 years out. And then they wait until a few days before the hearing, where they have a mandatory settlement conference, which is also costly. It's with the respondent, the respondent's attorney, our attorney, the Attorney General's office, and an ALJ. It's all organized through the Attorney General's office, which also costs a lot of money. If we are willing to settle right up front, then that whole mandatory settlement conference doesn't happen. And so that also will save a lot of money.
It sounds like you're working hard,
Good.
you and your staff, and I appreciate that.
Well, it's all our staff. They are fantastic.
So if I bring my car into a mechanic and they put in the wrong part and I have to bring it back and have it be fixed, I don't pay for that. Are we paying for all of their mistakes every time we send it back to them?
So I can tell you that we did get a refund from the Attorney General's office regarding one case that we shared fault in. So we ended up splitting the cost of that, which is good, but it's something that we are actively pursuing if we feel that we were charged for something that we should not have been charged for. The fees, though, related to OAH is a separate issue, not Attorney General's cost. That's would be from the OAH that I have to work out with them.
That would be the mistakes potentially that an ALJ would make in an order.
Correct.
Adding charges that were never in the beginning. And right now, we pay the whole freight of getting that cleaned up in addition to the time delay. Okay.
Okay, any other questions? I guess since Dr. Nunez opened the door, I have one. If it's too lengthy, let me know and I can talk off balance. But you have a statistical report here that has complaints and convictions, and I don't understand, I guess, the closed average days to intake and closed at intake and pending at intake. I don't understand that terminology. Is there a fast way to explain that?
So the complaints at intake, that would be we've received a complaint or we've received a conviction and it's with our intake technicians and they have yet to assign it to an investigation analyst. Okay. So those are the ones that are still pending.
What does it mean average days to intake? Does that mean assigning it to someone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes. So that with the change that we recently made, so licensing prior to I think our arrival, licensing was handling the convictions for applicants, which isn't really consistent with other boards, and it really is something that lies squarely on enforcement. When you have someone who is applying for a license and they have a conviction, that should be enforcement's investigation. The other thing that was also affecting was the fact that licensing, since they were handling it just from their side of things, they weren't documenting those complaints as data in Breeze. So realistically, we were kind of hiding the work that we were doing because we were just doing it on the back end, and licensing was saying, okay, well, we're doing the convictions. I'm recommending that this person be licensed. So with that being shifted over to enforcement, there was an immediate jump because there were several, and I guess I'm kind of holding that back. There were lots of pending complaints with convictions. So those were immediately transferred over to enforcement. That had an instant uptick in what was going on, and it also affected intake because intake has to properly process those complaints in Breeze and then assign them to an analyst. So we did have an instant uptick in the overall workload, which is something we were already struggling with. I think I reported that during the last board meeting, and now we are looking at around 1,500 complaints.
To clarify the uptick in workload, an increase in workload for enforcement, but it was an increase in workload for the overall board because it was just in licensing not being tracked. So it was an existing workload that wasn't being captured, and so now we shifted that to where it's now being captured.
Can I ask a question off yours, Jamie? So just to clarify, on your reports with the average days to intake, it's on page 5 of your report. Like quarter 1 and 2 and 17-18, there were 3. It was 3 and 3, and then quarter 1 and 2 and 18-19, it was 50 and 56. Right. Is that because partially also we were lower on staff?
Yes, that is a result. That is a result of staff. I know that when I first came on board, we had just gotten Dylan Christensen as our intake technician, and they worked diligently to cut that down, and it was trending downward. But with the addition of all those convictions, it did take an uptick. But they are attacking it, and as I said, I mean, I am trying to get some overtime there, but I don't want to work them out of something that's just not reasonable. So I think we'll be able to get this back down because they are. I have a really great staff, so I'm really happy about that.
Thank you. That's very helpful. I also had one more question about
Sure.
the unlicensed activity complaints received. It seems like there has been substantially less this year than the prior year. Is that true, or is that probably just a statistical variance right there?
It might be a variance. I mean, we still have complaints that need to be assigned to an investigator, and I think once it's assigned to an investigator, that could also flesh out whether or not it is truly an unlicensed complaint. So those numbers could change once we get through that pending at intake. Okay. Ideally, we want to be only a few days from receipt of a complaint to assignment to investigator, and I think we can definitely get there with the staff that, not with the staff that we have, but with our intake technicians, because they are very capable. But right now we're not there yet.
It just looks like you've received, had 19 in the first quarter, and then 8, and then 5, which is, seems. I wondered if you were handling them differently, or if it's just less. Okay.
No. If there's no license to tie that to, then that's where it's going to fall.
All right. Thank you. Any other questions?
I did want to thank you for, I think the report format's very good, and appreciate some of your new display techniques on. It's very clear.
Yeah, we are doing, I think we are doing quite a bit in enforcement. As I said, I am really happy with the team. We are trying to make things more efficient, and I think one of the things that I'm trying to convey to staff, on a consistent basis, is how these are going to improve things in the long run. But obviously with any kind of change, sometimes it can, you're used to consistency, and then all of a sudden, hey, we're going to do this differently. But ideally, we want to do what's best, most efficient, and then ensure consumer protection. So
we expect all the cases to be closed by next meeting.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I think that really the core of the report, with all these improvements, and we've done so much, it really does come down to staff. And I know that working for Jessica and working with her for years and years, she is the last person to say, "Oh, we've got a problem. Let's throw bodies at it. This is a staff issue." So for her to acknowledge that and realize that we do have an issue, and it's with we just need more staff, because we have great staff. I need some more great staff.
Right.
Can I
ask one more question on this? It just appeared to me in the unlicensed practice stuff, Tara, you might be able to answer. The point where now the board has the ability to request the CPUC to disconnect the phone service of an unlicensed individual, that's legal? It doesn't seem like that would be a safety concern.
So that's legal, and that's not a new thing.
Okay.
That's
We've always had that?
That's been available to all boards for quite some time. We're just using it.
And has any board used that?
I have.
Yeah, and I included the statute there in case you want.
Yeah, it just seems like disconnecting the phone.
I think it was relatively new to them, but I know when I reached out to I had to go through a few people to actually get to the person, and it was new to them as well, so they were kind of trying to figure it out. And when we said, this is what we're requesting, this is what we need to happen, and we received that letter back, it was a nice, I think, a little accomplishment that we were able to use this tool that's listed in law and see it actually work. So
the biggest challenge with unlicensed individuals is that they are kind of in the wind, and they do a lot of advertising with no physical address, but they have that phone number, and they rely on that phone number to get people in. And so if we disconnect that phone number, we're cutting it off.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That was what we used it on.
I also want to.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say that, but
yeah. I want to compliment you on your nice pie chart. Maybe I like shiny baubles, but it's very nice.
Yeah, I'm trying to give you different charts, as the time goes on.
Where does the we hear a lot about complaints on financial issues, like if you have people calling in and saying that there was a overcharge or probably not an undercharge, I wouldn't think too often.
Yeah.
And so where does that fall, in the other, or?
It would most likely be the other. Here we have
Non-jurisdictional?
listed fraud, deception, so that could be something that applies there, or the general and professional conduct.
Well, if it was related to he charged me too much or she charged me too much, that would be a non-jurisdiction.
Well, yeah, non-jurisdiction. Sorry, I guess I was
that's
going
a
to the
fairly
next step when it comes to
small.
fraud.
That's a small number. So I was under the impression it was a larger number. I'm a little mortified that it's almost 50% negligence and incompetence.
Yeah, I think that was one of the surprises that I had coming over to this board as well.
Those are what the complaints are filed as, not necessarily what they are.
Right.
Correct. But with
Quantified.
those, though, it's important to note, though, those are the cases that take the time, right?
Yep.
Because we have to get all the medical records. We have to send a subject matter expert. Those are the time-consuming ones.
Yep. And those are also our highest priority cases. So essentially the majority of our cases are the high priority cases.
I would assume that the other high priority would be substance abuse. Do you jump right on those?
Yes. Oh, yes. There's a few, and I think I specified a couple of the types of cases, and some of those are extremely high priority.
Yeah.
And those are, we reach out and speak to somebody directly.
Well, I mean, it does, like you just said, that the negligence ones then falls on how our expert witnesses again, and I mean, is the quality of our expert witnesses impairing our ability for us to move forward with some of these cases or know when it's appropriate? I guess I'm still concerned about our expert witnesses.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, including myself, share that concern, which is why we are rethinking how we are providing that feedback back to the subject matter experts, how we're providing the training to them. The NDC's Complaint Audit Subcommittee, we've met a few times on this very issue, and we're coming up with a new way to do it.
Who approves expert witnesses?
That's an enforcement staff. Ultimately, our enforcement manager would be approving them.
Mm-hmm.
But if the board wanted to put more qualifications on them, they can. But typically, it's if they have no discipline or pending enforcement actions, and if they've been practicing, I believe, for 5 years.
Is that something that we could, as a board, be like part of that process? Like where we all get to look over
It's a
there.
concern that we've had for years.
Yes, it's definitely not.
NBC does have their complaint process audit subcommittee. They're really specifically zeroed in on this concern.
Yep.
And they
Like if somebody applies for it, can we not all see that application? And and why not?
We sometimes have an issue with people applying, so expert witnesses are not overflowing.
Mm-hmm.
But the solution that we've come up with is to make sure that they're being properly trained
Mm-hmm.
on how to evaluate the cases.
Mm-hmm.
But the training is mostly from the legal perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and my concern in the past has been the medical aspect.
Yeah.
So I think the training that we're developing will focus on that as well, and what to put in a report and what not to put in a report.
Well, for example, some of the reports that we've had have some of the causes for discipline are in most of the causes for discipline in a couple of the cases were completely invalid based on medicine, and that's like in a negligence case. And had they not done that, we would not be wasting our resources and time on that case. It would have been dismissed. And so it just concerns me that a lot of resources and time are being wasted using people who apparently aren't medically sound.
I mean, the proposal to have us evaluate the applicants to see if they're qualified to do so, we might not be able to know if they're going to be good expert witnesses based on any application that they give us.
True.
But I think we might have more success providing good training on how they should be reviewing these cases.
Like that
say
they
the
should
training
look
is-
up the drug doses and plumb? Is that what you mean? Like giving them advice, like before you make a comment about a drug, you should look up the
A lot of
standard?
it has to do with the standard of care, and minimum standards and all that is part of the training on how, because there's no one right way to
Right,
deal
but
with
when they say that this dose is not an appropriate dose, yet you could look it up in a standard drug handbook or pharmacology book, and that dose is published, like, do we need to train them to look that up first before they make that statement?
I don't think they're getting that specific.
So, and I think it's important to note that we have some that are doing a very good job, so I think it's very important that we not,
Absolutely, I was going to say.
look at specific issues that we've had recently. We have to make sure we
Well, it sounds
remember.
like this, I'm sorry, I know
Well,
I'm being a
it
little
has
bit-
been an issue,
Yeah.
but it is one I think that we're trying to address, and we have made some steps in the right
Okay.
direction. So
Good.
And I'll also say, since I've been on the board since 14, I think in 14, October of 14, I went to a subject matter expert training, which was one of the first they'd had in years. And so since then, the board staff has very much bulked up those trainings, increased them, and actually made them far more user-friendly and useful in terms of, at least I went to one about 2 years ago. And it was
so maybe this should be
detailed.
something we put on the agenda. We should agendize this.
Yes, we should. But I think, though, I'd rather wait for the audit subcommittee and staff to work through our recommendations of how we're going to change the subject matter expert report, and then we can talk
report.
about
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions regarding the reports from the staff? Okay. Staff are getting off easy. I think then I think it's time to recess until April 18th, 2019 at 9 a.m.
No.
No?
No, that's today.
Oh.
That's weird. Just wait. We can just adjourn.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm reading the wrong statement.
I motion
That is-
to adjourn.
We need to have a motion to adjourn.
Second it.
Thank you. We've already recessed. Okay. I think we're done.